crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together, understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the Vice President said today we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, the same question. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working-class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me, and she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again. Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world. Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
That guy is good.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz,
He is
prepared to respond to any of the allegations.
Look, Donald Trump was in office. We'll sometimes hear a revisionist history, but when Donald Trump was in office, it was Donald Trump who we had a coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump. And when Iranian missiles did fall near U.S. troops and they received traumatic brain injuries, Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies understand that Donald Trump is fickle. He will go to whoever has the most flattery or where it makes sense to him. Steady leadership like you witnessed today, like you witnessed in April. Both Iranian attacks were repelled. Our coalition is strong, and we need the steady leadership that Kamala Harris is providing.
Senator Vance, the U.S. did have a diplomatic deal with Iran to temporarily pause parts of its nuclear program, and President Trump did exit that deal. He recently said, just 5 days ago, the U.S. must now make a diplomatic deal with Iran because the consequences are impossible. Did he make a mistake? You have 1 minute.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And the answer is your running mate, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the world more secure. Now, we talk about the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now, and you can't ignore October the 7th, which I appreciate Governor Walz bringing up. But when did Iran and Hamas and their proxies attack Israel? It was during the administration of Kamala Harris. So Governor Walz can criticize Donald Trump's tweets, but effective, smart diplomacy and peace through strength is how you bring stability back to a very broken world. Donald Trump has already done it once before. Ask yourself at home, when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to.
Whew, that boy is good.
Thank you.
He
Let's
is a
turn now to
monster.
Hurricane Helene.
I wouldn't want
The
to debate
storm
against
could
him.
become
He's
one
better
of
than
the
Trump.
deadliest on record.
He better
More
than
than
everybody.
160
Yeah, he is.
people are dead and
No
hundreds
doubt.
more are missing. Scientists say climate change makes these hurricanes larger, stronger, and more deadly because of the historic rainfall. Senator Vance, according to CBS News polling, 7 in 10 Americans and more than 60% of Republicans under the age of 45 favor the U.S. taking steps to try and reduce climate change. Senator, what responsibility would the Trump administration have to try and reduce the impact of climate change? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So first of all, let's start with the hurricane, because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I just saw today, actually, a photograph of 2 grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child, and it was the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm sure Governor Walz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get to save as many lives as possible, and then, of course, afterwards, to help the people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are communities that I love. Some of them I know very personally in Appalachia, all across the Southeast. They need their government to do their job, and I commit that when Donald Trump is president again, the government will put the citizens of this country first when they suffer from a disaster. Now, Nora, you asked about climate change. I think this is a very important issue. Look, a lot of people are justifiably worried about all these crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true, just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science. Let's just say that's true. Well, if you believe that, what would you want to do? The answer is that you'd want to reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America, because we're the cleanest economy in the entire world. What have Kamala Harris's policies actually led to? More energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas, more doing business in some of the dirtiest parts of the entire world. And when I say that, I mean the amount of carbon emissions they're doing per unit of economic output. So if we actually care about getting cleaner air and cleaner water, the best thing to do is to double down and invest in American workers and the American people. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has done exactly the opposite.
Governor Walz, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Well, we got close to an agreement because all those things are happening. Look, first of all, it is a horrific tragedy with this hurricane, and my heart goes out to the folks that are down there in contact with the governors. I serve as co-chair of the Council of Governors as we work together on these emergency managements. Governors know no partisanship. They work together. So all of the governors and the emergency responders are on the ground. Those happen on the front end. The federal government comes in, makes sure they're there to that we recover, but we're still in that phase where we need to make sure that they're staying there, staying focused. Now, look, coming back to the climate change issue, there's no doubt this thing roared onto the scene faster and stronger than anything we've seen. Senator Vance has said that there's a climate problem in the past. Donald Trump called it a hoax and then joked that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in. What we've seen out of the Harris administration now, the Biden-Harris administration, is we've seen this investment. We've seen massive investments, the biggest in global history that we've seen in the Inflation Reduction Act has created jobs all across the country. 2000 in Jeffersonville, Ohio, taking the EV technology that we invented and making it here. 200,000 jobs across the country. The largest solar manufacturing plant in North America sits in Minnesota. But my farmers know climate change is real. They've seen 500-year droughts, 500-year floods back to back. But what they're doing is adapting, and this has allowed them to tell me, look, I harvest corn, I harvest soybean, and I harvest wind. We are producing more natural gas and more oil at any time than we ever have. We're also producing more clean energy. So the solution for us is to continue to move forward that climate change is real. Reducing our impact is absolutely critical, but this is not a false choice. You can do that at the same time you're creating the jobs that we're seeing all across the country. That's exactly what this administration has done. We are seeing us becoming an energy superpower for the future, not just the current. And that's what absolutely makes sense. And then we start thinking about how do we mitigate these disasters.
Thank you. Senator, I want to give you an opportunity to respond there. The governor mentioned that President Trump has called climate change a hoax. Do you agree?
Well, look, what the president has said is that if the Democrats, in particular Kamala Harris and her leadership, if they really believe that climate change is serious, what they would be doing is more manufacturing and more energy production in the United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly, Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies. Now, something Governor Walz said I think is important to touch upon, because when we talk about clean energy, I think that's a slogan that often the Democrats will use here. And I'm talking, of course, about the Democratic leadership. And the real issue is that if you're spending hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars of American taxpayer money on solar panels that are made in China, number one, you're going to make the economy dirtier. We should be making more of those solar panels here in the United States of America. Some of them are, Tim, but a lot of them are being made overseas in China, especially the components that go into those solar panels. So if you really want to make the environment cleaner, you've got to invest in more energy production. We haven't built a nuclear facility, I think, one in the past 40 years.
Senator.
Natural gas, we got to invest more in it. Kamala Harris has done the opposite. That's raised energy prices and also meant that we're doing
Senator,
worse by the climate.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, would you like to respond?
Well, look, we're producing more natural gas than we ever have. There's no moratorium on that. We're producing more oil. But the folks know, and like I said again, these are not liberal folks. These are not folks that are Green New Deal folks. These are farmers that have been drought one year, massive flooding the next year. They understand that it makes sense. Look, our #1 export cannot be topsoil from erosion from these massive storms. We saw it in Minnesota this summer. And thinking about how do we respond to that, we're thinking ahead on this. And what Kamala Harris has been able to do in Minnesota, we're starting to weatherproof some of these things. The infrastructure law that was passed allows us to think about mitigation in the future. How do we make sure that we're protecting by burying our power lines? How do we make sure that we're protecting lakefronts and things that we're seeing more and more of? But to call it a hoax and to take the oil company executives to Mar-a-Lago, say, give me money for my campaign, and I'll let you do whatever you want. We can be smarter about that, and an all-above energy policy is exactly what she's doing, creating those jobs right here.
Governor,
Hey, do me a
your time is
favor,
up.
y'all. Mute
The
when y'all not
overwhelming
talking, so
consensus
we can
among
make sure that
scientists is that
we
the
don't get
Earth's
no
climate
feedback.
is warming at an unprecedented rate. Margaret?
Thank you, Nora. We're going to turn now to immigration. The crisis at the
having
U.S.-Mexico
a swimming.
border consistently ranks as one of the top issues for American voters. Senator Vance, your campaign is pledging to carry out the largest mass deportation plan in American history and to use the U.S. military to do so. Could you be more specific about exactly how this will work? For example, would you deport parents who have entered the U.S. illegally and separate them from any of their children who were born on U.S. soil? You have 2 minutes.
So first of all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies. 94 executive orders suspending deportations, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system. That has opened the floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. I had a mother who struggled with opioid addiction and has gotten clean. I don't want people who are struggling with addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities at record levels. So you've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations. And that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do? So we've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally. I think you start with deportations on those folks. And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work. And the final point, Margaret, is you ask about family separation. Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has effectively lost. Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border. And I'd ask my fellow Americans to remember when she came into office, she said she was going to do this. Real leadership would be saying, you know what, I screwed up. We're going to go back to Donald Trump's border policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
Governor, do you care to respond to any of those specific allegations, including that the
Yes,
vice president
respond.
is, quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things regarding children?
The drug mule is not true, but I will say about this, about the fentanyl, because this is a crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history, 30% decrease in Ohio. But there's still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of the largest state and a border state in California. She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve this. Most of us want to solve this, and that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. It was crafted by a conservative senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. I know him. He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation. The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents, detection for drugs, DOJ money to speed up these the adjudications on this, just what America wants. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him to, what would Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need to be done by the legislature. You can't just do this through the executive branch. So look, we have the options to do this. Donald Trump had 4 years. He had 4 years to do this. And he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it. Less than 2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling them what he was going to do. As far as the deportation plan, at one point, Senator Vance said it was so unworkable to be laughable. So that's where we're at. Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, the question was, will you separate parents from their children, even if their kids are U.S. citizens? You have 1 minute.
Margaret, my point is that we already have massive child separations thanks to Kamala Harris's open border. And I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules. I said that she enabled the Mexican drug cartels to operate freely in this country. And we know that they use children as drug mules, and it is a disgrace, and it has to stop. Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president again.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, what about our CBS News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations?
Look, we fix this issue with a bill that is necessary, but the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this, and Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this. That vilified a large number of people who were here legally in the community of Springfield. The Republican governor said, it's not true, don't do it. There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Langford did it. We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue. And the consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
Tim,
Governor, your time is up. Senator, I'll give you 1 minute, but let me just ask you the question first. The governor has made the point, and I think as a sitting lawmaker, you know that Congress controls the purse strings and any funding. So you have said repeatedly that Donald Trump would, through executive action, solve this. Do you disagree that Congress controls the purse strings and would need to support many of the changes that you would actually want to implement? You have 1 minute.
Look, Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empowering law enforcement to do their job. I've been to the southern border more than our borders are. Kamala Harris has been, and it's actually heartbreaking because the Border Patrol agents, they just want to be empowered to do their job. Of course, additional resources would help, but most of this is about the president and the vice president empowering our law enforcement to say, if you try to come across the border illegally, you've got to stay in Mexico, you've got to go back through proper channels. Now, Governor Walz brought up the community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed, you've got hospitals that are overwhelmed, you have got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, well, it is law enforcement that asked for the bill. They helped craft it. They're the ones that supported it. That's because they know we need to do this. Look, this issue of continuing to bring this up, of not dealing with it, of blaming migrants for everything. On housing, we could talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators buying up housing and making them less affordable, but it becomes a blame. Look, this bill also gives the money necessary to adjudicate. I agree, it should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done. This bill gets it done in 90 days. Then you start to make a difference in this, and you start to adhere to what we know, American principles. I don't talk about my faith a lot, but Matthew 25:40 talks about to the least amongst us you do unto me. I think that's true of most Americans. They simply want order to it. This bill does it. It's funded. It's supported by the people who do it. And it lets us keep our dignity about how we treat other people.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status. Right. Temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank you,
Margaret. The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The
we
CBP
want to have
One app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process. Nora.
Thank you, Margaret. The economy is a top concern for voters. Each of your campaigns has released an economic plan, so let's talk about the specifics. Governor Walz, Vice President Harris unveiled a plan that includes billions in tax credits for manufacturing, housing, and a renewed child tax credit. The Wharton School says your proposals will increase the nation's deficit by $1.2 trillion. How would you pay for that without ballooning the deficit? Governor, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. And Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class because that's where we come from. We both grew up in that. We understand. So those of you out there listening tonight, you're hearing a lot of stuff back and forth, and it's good. It's healthy. That's what this is supposed to happen. You should be listening. How's this going to impact me? The bold forward plan that Kamala Harris put out there is talking about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses proposed under this plan with down payment assistance on the front end to get you in a house. A house is much more than just an asset to be traded somewhere. It's foundational to where you're at.
You don't even own one.
Making sure that the things you buy every day, whether they be prescription drugs or other things, that there's fairness in that. Look, the
he doesn't own a
$35
house.
insulin is a good thing, but it costs $5 to make insulin. They were charging $800 before this law went into effect. As far as the housing goes, I've seen it in Minnesota. 12% more houses in Minneapolis, prices went down on rent 4%. It's working. And then making sure tax cuts go to the middle class. $6,000 child tax credit, we have one in Minnesota, reduces childhood poverty by 1/3. We save money in the long run, and we do the right thing for families. And then getting businesses off the ground. The law as it stands right now is $5,000 tax credit for small business, increasing that to $50,000. Now, this is a philosophical difference between us. Donald Trump made a promise, and I'll give you this. He kept it. He took folks to Mar-a-Lago, he said, you're rich as hell, I'm going to give you a tax cut. He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top class. What happened there was an $8 trillion increase in the national debt, the largest ever. Now he's proposing a 20% consumption or sales tax on everything we bring in. Everyone agrees, including businesses, it would be destabilizing it, it would increase inflation and potentially lead to a recession. Look, this is simple for you. Where are we going? Kamala Harris has said to do the things she wants to do, we'll just ask the wealthiest to pay their fair share. When you do that, our system works best, more people are participating in it, and folks have the things that they need.
Senator, I want to give you a moment to respond on that. But similarly, the Wharton School has done an analysis of the Trump plan and says it would increase the nation's deficit by $5.8 trillion. My question is the same for you. How do you pay for all that without ballooning the deficit? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer, a lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do. And some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it. Because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies. And what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%. Open the American southern border and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris has such great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now. Not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plans, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense and they don't have wisdom. Because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world. So when people say that Donald Trump's economic plan doesn't make sense, I say look at the record. He delivered rising take-home pay for American workers. Now, Tim admirably admits that they want to undo the Trump tax cuts. But if you look at what was so different about Donald Trump's tax cuts, even from previous Republican tax cut plans, is that a lot of those resources went to giving more take-home pay to middle class and working class Americans. It was passed in 2017, and you saw an American economic boom unlike we've seen in a generation in this country. That is a record that I'm proud to run on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom so that you can afford afford to live the American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills. It's going to stop when Donald Trump brings back common sense to this country.
Governor, do you want to respond to that? What has Kamala Harris done for the middle class?
Yeah, well, Kamala Harris's day one was Donald Trump's failure on COVID that led to the collapse of our economy. We were already before COVID in a manufacturing recession, but 10 million people out of work, largest percentage since the Great Depression. 9 million jobs closed on that. That was day one, whether it was the Infrastructure Act or other things we moved. Now, you made a question about experts, said this. I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. Look, if you're going to be president, you don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump. And the same thing goes with this. And I ask you out there, teachers, nurses, truck drivers, or whatever, how is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years, and the last year as president? That's what's wrong with the system. There's a way around it, and he's bragged about that. We're just asking for fairness in it, and that's all you want.
You have a minute.
Governor, you say trust the experts. But those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial base off to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong about it. And for the first time in a generation, Donald Trump had the wisdom and the courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue. I mean, I've got 3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2, and I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that we put in the bodies of our children are manufactured by nations that hate us. This has to stop, and we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator, your time is up. Governor Walz, can you address that? I mean, voters say they trust Donald Trump on the economy more. Why?
Well, if you're listening tonight and you want billionaires to get tax cuts, you heard what the numbers were. Look, I'm a union guy on this. I'm not a guy who wanted to ship things overseas, but I understand that, look, we produce soybeans and corn. We need to have fair trading partners. That's something that we believe in. I think the thing that most concerns me on this is Donald Trump was the guy who created the largest trade deficit in American history with China. So the rhetoric is good. Much of what the senator said right there, I'm in agreement with him on this. I watched it happen too. I watched it to my communities, and we talked about that. But we had people undercutting the right to collectively bargain. We had right to work states made it more difficult. We had companies that were willing to ship it over, and we saw people profit. Folks that are venture capital in some cases, putting money into companies that were overseas. We're in agreement that we bring those home. The issue is Donald Trump is talking about it. Kamala Harris has a record, 250,000 more manufacturing jobs just out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So appreciate that. So if you notice, what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics show that he did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here, because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you've simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
I hope we have a conversation on health care then.
Senator, Governor.
Please.
Thank you. Margaret?
We have a lot to get to,
that guy is
gentlemen,
so,
on many topics.
Bro.
But right now, I want to talk about personal qualifications. The vice president is often the last voice the president hears before making consequential decisions. We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, You said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural
Oh,
Nebraska,
don't do that.
town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher.
Don't start telling your
My first
life
year out, I got
story.
the
Answer the
opportunity
question.
in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can.
Answer the
but I've
question.
not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times.
said, "I'll
But
make
it's
y'all
always been
forget
about
about
that.
it.
Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to
I hope
elect me to
Vance
governor
pressing.
twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say
looked at
more
it,
than
he's like, "Bro, I
anything.
need an
Many
answer."
times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up
He's
in
about
the
to
rhetoric.
smoke this boy.
But
to get
from
him.
there,
Smoky.
the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID, and I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community, and then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this is I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
He looking dumb as hell.
Thank you, Governor. Senator Vance, in 2016, you called your running mate Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. I know you've been asked many times, and you've said you regret those comments and explained you then voted for Donald Trump in 2020. But the Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic populism. You're now his running mate, and you've shifted many of your policy stances to align with his. If you become vice president, why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think he'd be able to deliver on. And yeah, when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, why I've done so many interviews is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where I come down on the issues and what changed. Now, you pointed out to messages from 2020. Margaret, I've been extremely consistent that I think there were a lot of things that we could have done better in the Trump administration the first round if Congress was doing its job. I strongly believe, and I've been a United States Senator, that Congress is not just a high-class debating society. It's not just a forum for senators and congressmen to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where I think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump, they couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about this tariff issue in particular here, Margaret, because Tim just accused this of being a national sales tax. Look, the one thing, and you're not probably surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden, but the one thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing jobs. And it's the one issue, the most pro-worker part of the Biden administration, it's the one issue where Kamala Harris has run away from Joe Biden's record. Think about this. If you're trying to employ slave laborers in China at $3 a day, you're going to do that and undercut the wages of American workers unless our country stands up for itself and says you're not accessing our markets unless you're paying middle-class Americans a fair wage.
Senator, your time is up. Nora?
Thank you. Now to the issue of reproductive rights. Governor Walz, after Roe versus Wade was
This is so
overturned,
one-sided,
you signed
bro.
a bill into law that made Minnesota one of the least restrictive states in the nation when it comes to abortion. Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Yes or no? Is that what you support? I'll give you 2 minutes.
That's not what the bill says, but look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind. Donald Trump put this all into motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade, 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing. Amanda Zaworski would disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. A young bride in Texas waiting for their child at 18 weeks. She has a complication, a tear in the membrane. She needs to go in. The medical care at that point needs to be decided by the doctor. And that would have been an abortion. But in Texas, that would have put them in legal jeopardy. She went home, got sepsis, nearly dies, and now she may have difficulty having children. Or in Kentucky, Hadley Duvall, a 12-year-old child raped and impregnated by her stepfather. Those are horrific. Now, when God asked about that, Senator Vance said 2 wrongs don't make a right. There is no right in this. So in Minnesota, what we did was restore Roe versus Wade. We made sure that we put women in charge of their health care. But look, this is not where, if you don't know Amanda or a Hadley, you soon will. Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible, to get contraception and limit access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments. For so many of you out there listening, me included, infertility treatments are why I have a child. That's nobody else's business, but those things are being proposed. And the catch-all on this is, well, the states will decide what's right for Texas might not be right for Washington. That's not how this works. This is basic human right. We have seen maternal mortality skyrocket in Texas, outpacing many other countries in the world. This is about health care. In Minnesota, we are ranked first in health care for a reason. We trust women, we trust doctors.
Senator, do you want to respond to the governor's claim? Will you create a federal pregnancy monitoring agency?
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, you know, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And, you know, one of them is actually very dear to me. And I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do. I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families to afford a home so they can afford a place to raise that family. And I think there's so much that we can do on the public policy front just to give women more options. Now, of course, Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the proper way to handle this, as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions. Let the individual states make their abortion policy. And I think that's what makes the most sense in a very big, a very diverse, and let's be honest, sometimes a very, very messy and divided country.
Governor, would you like to respond and also answer the question about restrictions?
Yeah, well, the question got asked, and Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you about this idea that there's diverse states. There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restrictive state. Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography? There's a very real chance, had Amber Thurman lived in Minnesota, she would be alive today. That's why the restoration of Roe versus Wade. When you listen to Vice President Harris talk about this subject and you hear me talk about it, you hear us talking exactly the same. Donald Trump is trying to figure out how to get the political right of this. I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said about what's happening. His running mate, though, does not, and that's the problem.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, let me ask you about that. He mentioned, was, I think, referring to a national ban. In the past, you have supported a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks. In fact, you said if someone can't support legislation like that, quote, you are making the United States the most barbaric pro-abortion regime anywhere in the entire world. My question is, why have you changed your position?
Well, Nora, first of all, I never supported a national ban. I did when I was running for Senate in 2022 talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not, though I know that Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion stance. But Nora, you know, one of the things that changed is in the state of Ohio, we had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making childcare more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible, because we've got to do a better job at that. And that's what real leadership is.
Governor, your response.
I'm going to respond on the pro-abortion piece of that. No, we're not. We're pro-women. We're pro-freedom to make your own choice. We know what the implications
the
are
simping
to
is
not be
amazing.
that. Women having miscarriages, women not getting the care, physicians feeling like they may be prosecuted for providing that care. And as far as making sure that we're educating our children and giving them options, Minnesota's a state with one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates. We understand that too. We know that the options need to be available, and we make that true. We also make it, we're a top 3 state for the best place to raise children. But these two things, to try and say that we're pro-children, but we don't like this, or you guys are pro-abortion, that's not the case at all. We are pro-freedoms for women to make their choices, and we're going, and Kamala Harris is making the case, to make options for children more affordable, a $6,000 child tax credit, but we're not going to base that on the backs of making someone like Amber Thurman drive 600 miles to try and get health care.
Senator.
May I respond to that? First of all, Governor, I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive, and I certainly wish that she was. And maybe you're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me, but as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think, whether you're pro-choice or pro-abortion, that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point. That's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me. What was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given I've given this advice on a lot of things that getting involved, getting engaged, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget. Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
Gentlemen, there's a lot to discuss. We have to move on, and we're going to be right back with much more of the CBS News vice presidential debate in just a moment.
Thoughts?
Hey, that old fossil getting cooked. Bad. He getting cooked.
What are y'all thoughts on it so far?
Shit.
He's a liar. Like that he gave us like an hour-long soliloquy just to say I misspoke.
What's up, Carrie?
I see you, Carrie. Take accountability.
Carrie looking great. I see you, Carrie. What's up, baby girl?
He wasn't going to answer the question until she made him. He was going to leave
That's
it
what
at
I'm saying. He would have did better, especially since she gave Vance the opportunity to address his comment, and he took accountability right behind Walz not. So
I will say this, objectively speaking, I believe that, so I got a couple different thoughts. Number one, I believe that JD Vance clearly is superior in his ability to be able to debate, pull punches, like all of that. I mean, he's vastly, but to be honest with you, it's not fair because JD Vance would just absolutely destroy anybody. It don't matter who it is. It don't matter if it was Tim Walz. It don't matter if he was debating against Donald Trump. Donald Trump would have a very, very tough night. JD Vance is just superior in his intellect and his ability to be able to communicate. Now, with that being said, Tim Walz, up all the way up until the point where she pressed him, he did phenomenal. He tried to hold the line against a fucking Steph Curry Warriors and Kevin Durant Warriors, JD Vance. Up until that point, he was doing really well, and I was very, very, very impressed with Tim Walz's ability to stay stable without getting flustered and all of that. Tim Walz did really well up until that point. When he got to that point, he just fell off the cliff. That was where when she pressed him, and this is what I said on Fox News today. I said, if they press him and he's able to get off and they get him off script, he gonna fumble. And that's exactly what he did.
He'd be better as a presidential candidate than Kamala would.
I mean, I think that Tim Walz is doing really well in the debate. I just think that he fell the fuck off. He had a brain fart moment. He didn't know how to answer it. They wouldn't let him just, talk about his upbringing and let that be the end of it. He got fucked up.
That's their go-to when they don't want to answer the question. They like have to relate with their peoples. Middle class, brought it up by the bootstraps. We were on welfare together.
Man, that shit's so
how much
lame,
of it
man.
did I miss? When did this come on? 9
o'clock. 9 o'clock. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which is tripped out because in my time zone is 6. So
you on the West Coast?
Yeah, I've been on the West Coast since.
Oh yeah, you just say you're in Vegas.
Yeah, I've been in Vegas the whole time. So yep, I've been on the West Coast. So yeah, this is what I was looking forward to. I was really looking forward to this whole debate, bro. This is my Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? So it's been really good. This has been the best. The vice presidential debate is usually the better debate versus the presidential debate all the time. I mean, it was much better than the Biden versus Trump. It's much better than Kamala versus Trump. This is like an intellectual orgasm seeing how, it is, bro. Like to see the separation between regular motherfuckers and people that and JD Vance. It's a masterclass. Like, I believe that this is one of this is going to be a debate that's studied long term. You got to reference
Mm.
this if you in a debate. If you really love to see people go at it intellectually, you're going to have to reference this. And again, I don't think that Tim Walz was a slouch at all. I think he did really well until he got fucked up about being pressed.
Welcome back to the CBS News vice presidential debate. We want to turn now to America's gun violence epidemic. The leading cause of death for children and teens in America is by firearms. Senator Vance, you oppose most gun legislation that Democrats claim would curb gun violence. You oppose red flag gun laws and legislation to ban certain semi-automatic rifles, including AR-15s. So let me ask you, earlier this year, for the first time, the parents of a school shooter were convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Do you think holding parents responsible could curb mass shootings? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, Nora, on that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly trust local law enforcement and local authorities to make those decisions. I think in some cases the answer is going to be yes, and in some cases the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of speak as a father of 3 beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to school with such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families that are affected by this terrible stuff. And we do have to do better. And I think that Governor Walz and I actually probably agree that we need to do better on this. The question is just, how do we actually do it? Now, here's something that really bothers me and worries me about this epidemic of violence. The gross majority, close to 90% in some of the statistics I've seen, of the gun violence in this country is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartels. So that number, the amount of illegal guns in our country is higher today than it was 3.5 years ago. But what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And I think the answer is, and I say this not loving the answer, because I don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers, because the idea that we can magically wave a wand and take guns out of the hands of bad guys, it just doesn't fit with recent experience. So we've got to make our schools safer. And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan solutions for how to do that.
Governor, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress, I sat in my office surrounded by dozens of the Sandy Hook parents, and they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is. We understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out. In Minnesota, we've enacted enhanced red flag laws, enhanced background checks, and we can start to get data. But here's the problem. If we really want to solve this, we've got folks that won't allow research to be even done on gun violence. And this idea that we should just live with it, and here's what I do think, that this is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that worked. I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools. They don't have this happen, even though they have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference. It's not infringing on your Second Amendment. And the idea to have some of these weapons out there, it just doesn't make any sense. Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, worked on this issue. She knows that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your guns, but I ask all of you out there, do you want your schools hardened to look like a fort? Is that what we have to go? When we know There's countries around the world that their children aren't practicing these types of drills. They're being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix. These are things that shouldn't be that difficult. You can still keep your firearms, and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Senator.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's doing okay. Christ have mercy. It is awful. And I appreciate what Tim said, actually, about Finland, because I do think it illustrates some of the frankly, weird differences between our own country's gun violence problem and Finland. Is, okay, first of all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse, or mental health substance abuse. We have way higher rates of depression, way higher rates of anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get to the root causes of, because I don't think it's the whole reason why we have such a bad gun violence problem, but I do think it's a big piece of it. Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we have to empower law enforcement to arrest the bad guys, put them away, and take gun offenders off the streets. I think there's a whole host of things that we can do here, but I do think at our schools we've got to talk about more security.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was the NRA guy for a long time.
You became friends with school shooters?
I'm of an age where
he likes to
shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice.
He became friends with school shooters. Okay.
On this is talking about cities and where it's at. The number one where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves. And so we have, and we should look at all of the issues. Making sure folks have health care and all that, but I want to be very careful. This idea of stigmatizing mental health, just because you have a mental health issue doesn't mean you're violent. And I think what we end up doing is we start looking for a scapegoat. Sometimes it just is the guns. It's just the guns, and there are things that you can do about it. But I do think that this is one, and I think this is a healthy conversation. I think there's a capacity to find solutions on this that work, protect Second Amendment, protect our children.
He's 100% wrong.
Gentlemen, thank you. Margaret?
Thank you, Nora.
Sometimes it's
Let's
not
turn
just
now to the
guns.
top contributor to inflation, the high cost of housing and rent. There's a shortage of more than 4 million homes in the United States, and that contributes to the high housing prices. Governor Walz, the Harris campaign promises a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and a $10,000 tax credit. They also promise to build 3 million new homes. Where are you building these homes, and won't handing out that kind of money just drive up prices higher?
No, it's not handing out. First, let me say this issue of housing, and I think those of you listening on this, the problem we've had is that we've got a lot of folks that see housing as another commodity. It can be bought up, it can be shifted, it can be moved around. Those are not folks living in those houses.
What?
Those of you listening tonight, that house is a big deal.
How do you move it around?
I owned one house in my life. My mom still lives in the house where I was. And when I think of a house, I'm thinking of Christmas services after midnight mass.
And you don't
go with your
own
family.
one.
We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said, this program that the Vice President is pushing forward and bringing a new way of approaching this is something we're doing in Minnesota from that lead. We in the state invested in making sure our housing was the biggest investment that we'd ever made in housing. It starts to make it easier. We cut some of the red tape. Local folks, look, we can't do it at the federal level, but local folks make it easier to build those homes. And then that down payment assistance. I can tell all of you out there, certainly for me, using the GI Bill was one thing, but a veteran's home loan, the big thing about a veteran's home loan is you don't have to pay the down payment. Those are things that make it there. Now, look, you're going to pay it back, and you're going to pay your mortgage. Those are things that we know in the long run, the appreciated value,
He's starting to
generational
fail.
wealth that's created from it. And I will give Minneapolis
longer
an
he's
example.
talked, the more he
Minneapolis
sees
is the
he's
one
failing.
city where we've seen the lowest
When they start
inflation
getting
rates.
economics,
We've
he's
seen a
suffering.
12% increase in stock because we've put some of these things in, and we're implementing a state program to make sure we give some of that down payment assistance. We get it back from people because here's what we know. People with stable housing end up with stable jobs. People with stable housing have their kids able to get to school. All of those things in the long run end up saving our money. And that's the thing that I think we should be able to find some common ground in, but we can't blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case that's happening in many cities. The fact of the matter is that we don't have enough naturally affordable housing, but we can make sure that the government's there to help kickstart it, create that base.
Yeah,
Governor,
he's
your time
he's
is
starting
up.
to fail.
Senator Vance,
The longer
as
he
far
talks,
as
the
your
more he's looking
campaign's
stupid.
position, the promise is to seize federal lands to build homes, remove regulation, provide tax breaks, and cut back on immigration, which you say pushes up prices. Where are you going to build all the new homes you're promising, and what part of any of this plan will provide immediate relief? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this country, which does drive up costs, Tim. 25 million illegal aliens competing with Americans for scarce homes is one of the most significant drivers of home prices in the country. It's why we have massive increases in home prices that have happened right alongside massive increases in illegal alien populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with. But the most important thing here is Kamala Harris is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president. If she wants to enact all of these policies to make housing more affordable, I invite her to use the office that the American people already gave her, not sit around and campaign and do nothing while Americans find the American dream of homeownership completely unaffordable. Now, you asked, Margaret, what would immediately change the equation for American citizens? If you lower energy prices, as Donald Trump says, drill, baby, drill, one of the biggest drivers of housing costs aside from illegal immigration is, think about it, if a truck driver's paying 40% more for diesel, then the lumber he's delivering to the job site to build the house is also going to become a lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate pricing relief for American citizens, not, by the way, just in housing, but in a whole host of other economic goods, too.
Senator Vance, you still have 23 seconds there. Do you want to answer?
Can I have it?
Governor, we will get to you in a moment. But, Senator, where are you going to seize the federal lands? Can you clarify?
Well, what Donald Trump has said is we have a lot of federal lands that aren't being used for anything. They're not being used for national park. They're not being used, and they could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, I do want to let you respond to the allegation that the vice president is letting in
Well, of course, that's not true. And again, you have the facts. I guess we agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That, look, crossings are down compared to when Donald Trump left office. But it's, again, blaming and not trying to find the solution. I was going to ask, though, on this question, are we going to drill and build houses in the same federal land? And I think when people hear federal lands, these are really important pieces of land. Now, Minnesota doesn't have a lot of federal lands. I know in the western part of the countries we do. There's not a lot of federal lands in and around Minneapolis, for example. So the issue is I don't understand the federal lands issue unless we see this, and I worry about this as someone who cares deeply about our national parks and our federal lands. Look, Minnesota, we protect these things. We've got about 20% of the world's fresh water. These lands protect. They're there for a reason. They belong to all of us. But again, this is when you view housing and you view these things as commodities. Like, there's a chance to make money here. Let's take this federal land and let's sell it to people for that. I think there's better ways to do this. We've seen it in Minnesota. We're able to refurbish some of these houses. We're able to make some investments. That gets people in. And I'm still on the fact on this. Economists, Senator Vance, you said you don't like the economists. Which economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor, your time is up. But Senator, on that point, I'd like for you to clarify. There are many contributing factors to high housing costs. What evidence do you have that migrants are part of this problem?
Well, there's a Federal Reserve study that we're happy to share after the debate. We'll put it up on social media, actually, that really drills down on the connection between increased levels of migration, especially illegal immigration, and higher housing prices. Now, of course, Margaret, that's not the entire driver of higher housing prices. It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration that makes it harder to develop our resources resources, makes it harder to build things, and wants to throw people in jail for not doing everything exactly as Kamala Harris says they have to do. And what that means is that you have a lot of people who would love to build homes who aren't able to build homes. I actually agree with Tim Walz. We should get out of this idea of housing as a commodity. But the thing that has most turned housing into a commodity is giving it away to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
What are the federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
You can very quickly reply.
I'm sorry. I get this as a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, that in some cases, many of those are local, many of them are state. I don't know which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things. So which are the regulations? Because the vice president's not responsible for those. Congress writes those.
Governor, thank you. Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to. You're passionate about the housing crisis, I can tell. But Nora?
Thank you. One of the top problems facing Americans is the high cost of health care. Senator Vance, at the last presidential debate, former President Trump was asked about replacing the Affordable Care Act. In response, he said, "I have concepts of a plan." Since then, Senator, you've talked about changing how chronically ill Americans get health insurance. Can you explain how that would work? And can you guarantee that Americans with pre-existing conditions won't pay more? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, of course, we're going to cover Americans with pre-existing conditions. In fact, a lot of my family members have gotten health care. I believe, members of my family actually got private health insurance, at least for the first time, switched off of Medicaid onto private insurance for the first time under Donald Trump's leadership. And I think that, a lot of people have criticized this concepts of a plan remark. Look, it's very simple common sense. I think as Tim Walz knows from 12 years in Congress, you're not going to propose a 900-page bill standing on a debate stage. It would bore everybody to tears, and it wouldn't actually mean anything because part of this is the give and take of bipartisan negotiation. Now, when Donald Trump was actually president, and again, he has a record to be proud of, prescription drugs fell in 2018 for the first time in a very long time. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, prescription drugs are up about 7%. Under Donald Trump's entire 4 years, they were up about 1.5%. He introduced pricing transparency. Think about healthcare. You go into a hospital, you try to buy something, and nobody knows what it actually costs. That price transparency will actually give American consumers a little bit more choice and will also drive down costs. And we talked about, the reinsurance regulations is what I was talking about. Look, Donald Trump has said that if we allow states to experiment a little bit on how to cover both the chronically ill but the non-chronically ill, it's not just a plan. He actually implemented some of these regulations when he was president of the United States. And I think you can make a really good argument that it salvaged Obamacare, which was doing disastrously until Donald Trump came along. And I think this is an important point about President Trump. Of course, you don't have to agree with everything that President Trump has ever said or ever done. But when Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and health care costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care. It's not perfect, of course, and there's so much more that we can do. But I think that Donald Trump has earned the right to put in place some better health care policies. He's earned it because he did it successfully the first time.
Governor?
All right, here's where being an old guy gives you some history. I was there at the creation of the ACA. And the reason it was so important is I come from a major healthcare state, home of the Mayo Clinic, home to Medical Alley, 3M, Medtronic, all of those. We understand healthcare. It's why we're ranked first on affordability and accessibility and quality of healthcare. And so what I know is under Kamala Harris, more people are covered than they have before. And those of you listening, this is critical to you. Now, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants to. Go back and remember this. He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was to repeal Obamacare. On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill. Now, fast forward, what that means to you is you lose your pre-existing conditions. If you're sitting at home and you got asthma, too bad. If you're a woman, probably not. Broke your foot during football, might kick you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. Kamala Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that'll be there. But look, this issue, and when Donald Trump said, I've got a concept of a plan, it cracked me up as a fourth grade teacher because my kids would have never given me that. But what Senator Vance just explained might be worse than a concept, because what he explained is pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done this for a long time. What they're saying is, if you're healthy, why should you be paying more? So what they're going to do is let insurance companies pick who they insure, because guess what happens? You pay your premium, it's not much. They figure they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little older, gray, got cancer, you're going to get kicked out of it. That's why the system didn't work. Kamala Harris will protect and enhance the ACA.
Governor, thank you. Senator, you have not yet explained how you would protect people with pre-existing conditions or laid out that plan.
Well, look, we currently have laws and regulations in place right now that protect people with pre-existing conditions. We want to keep those regulations in place, but we also want to make the health insurance marketplace function a little bit better. Now, what Governor Walz just said is actually not true. A lot of what happened, and the reason that Obamacare was crushing under its own weight, is that a lot of young and healthy people were leaving the exchanges. Donald Trump actually helped address that problem, and he did so in a way that preserved people's access to coverage who had pre-existing conditions. But again, something that these guys do is they make a lot of claims about if Donald Trump becomes president, all of these terrible consequences are going to ensue. But in reality, Donald Trump was president. Inflation was low, take-home pay was higher, and he saved the very program from a Democratic administration that was collapsing and would have collapsed absent his leadership. He did his job, which is govern in a bipartisan way and get results, not just complain about problems, but actually solve them.
Governor, did enrollment under the Affordable Care Act go up under the Trump administration?
It's higher now that we've seen it go up. Look, people are using it. The system works. And
No,
the
no, no, no.
question about this,
He
young
asked him
people,
under the
whatever, that's
Trump
the individual
administration.
mandate piece of this. And Republicans fought tooth and nail saying, well, Americans should be free to do this. Well, then
So
what
you
happens
think the
is
individual mandate's a good idea?
you shrink. I think the idea of making sure the risk pool is broad enough to cover everyone, that's the only way insurance works. When it doesn't, it collapses. You are asking pre-ACA where we get people out. Look, people know that they need to be on health care. People expect it to be there. And when we are able to make it, and we are making it this way, when we incentivize people to be in the market, when we help people who might not be able to afford it get there, and we make sure then when you get sick and old, it's there for you. Because I heard people say, well, I don't want to buy into Medicare or whatever. Good luck buying health care once you get past 70. So look, the ACA works. We can continue to do better. Kamala Harris did that. The way she made everything better was negotiating those 10 drugs on Medicare for the first time in American history.
Thank you. Margaret?
Can I address that?
I apologize. We're out of time.
ahead,
We have a
Nora.
number of subjects to discuss. Margaret?
Let's talk about families in America. There is a child care crisis in this country, and the United States is one of the very few developed countries in the world without a national paid leave program for new parents. Governor Walz, you said that if Democrats win both the White House and Congress, this is a day one priority for you. How long should employers be required to pay workers while they are home taking care of their newborns? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's negotiable, and that's what Congress worked. But here's what the deal is. Americans sitting out there right now, you may work for a big company. Look, we're home in Minnesota to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies. Kamala Harris
Why he
knows that
don't
in
ever answer the
in
question?
California. Those companies provide paid family and medical leave. One is, I think they're moral and they think it's a good thing, but it also keeps their employees healthy. We in Minnesota passed a paid family and medical leave. You have a child, and I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets the child off to a better start, the family works better, we stay in their employers, we get more consistency in that. So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. But the negotiations on it, and here's the issue, those big companies are able to offer it. Those of you out there who don't have it, just imagine what happens if you get cancer or your child gets sick. We know what happens. You end up staying home. In some places, that means no paycheck because you've got no protection on that. This is the case of an economy that Donald Trump has set for the wealthiest amongst us. He's willing to give those tax breaks to the wealthiest. He's willing to say, bust those unions up, do whatever. What we're saying is the economy works best when it works for all of us. And so a paid family medical leave program, and I will tell you, go to the families or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as childcare on this, you have to take it at both the supply and the demand side. You can't expect the most important people in our lives to take either our children or our parents to get paid the least amount of money. And we have to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business and then to make sure that folks are able to pay for that. We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family and medical leave and help with this will enhance our workforce, enhance our families, and make it easier to have the children that you want.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, do you support a national paid leave program? And if so, for how long should employers be mandated to pay their employees while they are home taking care of their newborn? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret, a number of my Republican colleagues and some Democrats, too, have worked on this issue. And I think there is a bipartisan solution here because a lot of us care about this issue. I mean, look, I speak from this very personally because I'm married to a beautiful woman who is an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very, very brilliant corporate litigator. And I'm so proud of her. But being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company. But the cultural pressure on young families and especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model that makes choice possible. And I think this is a very important substantive difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach. I mean, look, if you look at the federal programs that we have that support paid family leave right now, the Community Development Block Grant, and there's another block grant program that spends a lot of money from the federal government. These programs only go to one kind of child care model. Let's say you'd like your church maybe to help you out with child care. Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area and you'd like to get together with families in your neighborhood to provide child care in the way that makes the most sense. You don't get access to any of these federal monies. We want to promote choice in how we deliver family care and how we promote child care because, look, it is unacceptable. And, you know, of course, Tim and I have been on the campaign trail a lot the past 7 or 8 weeks. And one of the biggest complaints I hear from young families is people who feel like they don't have options, like they're choosing between going to work or taking care for their kids. That is an incredible burden to put on American families. We're the only country that does it. I think we could do a heck of a lot better.
Senator, thank you. You have also said, Senator Vance, many things about the American family. The Federal Reserve says parents will spend nearly as much on child care as they do on housing each month. So I want to get your thoughts on this. President Trump recently said, as much as child care is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kinds of numbers we'll be taking in. Is President Trump committed to the $5,000 per child tax credit that you have described? You have 1 minute.
Well, what President Trump said, Margaret, I just want to defend my running mate here a little bit, is that we're going to be taking in a lot of money by penalizing companies for shipping jobs overseas and penalizing countries who employ slave laborers and then ship their products back into our country and undercut the wages of American workers. It's the heart of the Donald Trump economic plan. Cut taxes for American workers and American families. Cut taxes for businesses that are hiring and building companies in the United States of America, but penalize companies and countries that are shipping jobs overseas. That's the heart of the economic proposal. And I think what President Trump is saying is that when we bring in this additional revenue with higher economic growth, we're going to be able to provide paid family leave, child care options that are viable and workable for a lot of American families.
Can you clarify how that will solve the child care shortage?
Well, because as Tim said, a lot of the child care shortage is we just don't have enough resources going into the multiple people who could be providing family care options. And we're going to have to, unfortunately, look, we're going to have to spend more money. We're going to have to induce more people to want to provide child care options for American families, because the reason it's so expensive right now is because you've got way too few people providing this very essential service.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, your ticket also has some child care tax credit proposals. Do you think Congress will agree to the $6,000 credit for newborns and $3,000 credit for children over the age of 6, as your campaign has promised? Is that realistic?
Well, if these members of Congress are listening to anybody, I can tell you, and this is the biggest issue. Everybody listening tonight knows. I mean, I'm sure they were shocked to hear it's not that expensive. And let's be clear, whether it's $5,000 or $6,000, that pays you about 3 or 4 months. Let's be clear of where we're at on this. It's because we got out of an imbalance on this. We thought we were going to get by not paying people. I don't think Senator Vance and I are that far apart. I'm not opposed to what he's talking about on options. We've done scholarships types of things. I think we need to be open to making the case. But the issue here is, the question you asked is, you're not going to pay for it with these tariffs. That's just adding another $4,000 on the family and taking less. So not only do they not get the money to pay for that, they're $4,000 in the hole. That's Wharton School. That's his alma mater. And so I think the issue here is, if those members of Congress, I can't believe they're not. When I go to businesses, sure, they'll talk about taxes sometime, but they will lead with childcare and they will lead with housing, because we know the problem is, especially in a state like Minnesota, we need more workers because our economy's growing, but we need the workforce.
Governor, thank you. We need to move on. Nora?
Let's talk about the state of democracy, the top issue for Americans after the economy and inflation. After the 2020 election, President Trump's campaign and others filed 62 lawsuits contesting the results. Judges, including those appointed by President Trump and other Republican presidents, looked at the evidence and said there was no widespread fraud. The governors of every state in the nation, Republicans and Democrats, certified the 2020 election results and sent a legal slate of electors to Congress for January 6th. Senator Vance, you have said you would not have certified the last presidential election and would have asked the states to submit alternative electors. That has been called unconstitutional and illegal. Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, Nora, first of all, I think that we're focused on the future. We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable, and that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it. Look, what President Trump has said is that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square, and that's all I've said, and that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember, he said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president. Donald Trump left the White House. And now, of course, unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration. I believe that we actually do have a threat to democracy in this country, but unfortunately, it's not the threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship. It's Americans casting aside lifelong friendships because of disagreements over politics. It's big technology companies silencing their fellow citizens. And it's Kamala Harris saying that rather than debate and persuade her fellow Americans, she'd like to censor people who engage in misinformation. I think that is a much bigger threat to democracy than anything that we've seen in this country in the last 4 years, in the last 40 years. Now, I'm really proud, especially given that I was raised by 2 lifelong blue-collar Democrats, to have the endorsement of Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong leaders in the Democratic coalition. And of course, they don't agree with me and Donald Trump on every issue. We don't have to agree on every issue, but we're united behind a basic American First Amendment principle that we ought to debate our differences. We ought to argue about them. We ought to try to persuade our fellow Americans. Kamala Harris is engaged in censorship at an industrial scale. She did it during COVID. She's done it over a number of other issues. And that, to me, is a much bigger threat to democracy than what Donald Trump said.
It's a lot of people that lost their
protesters
platforms
should
for
peacefully
speaking out
protest
against
on
the
January the
jab,
6th.
Governor?
to speaking out about a lot of that stuff.
Well, I've
during
enjoyed
during
tonight's
that
debate, and I think there was a
administration.
lot of commonality here, and I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might
There's
have.
a lot of
with,
people that
with
lost
the
their
senator, but there's one,
livelihood. for
there's
that.
one though that this one is troubling to me, and I say that because I think we need to tell the story. Donald Trump refused to acknowledge this. And the fact is that I don't think we can be the frog in the pot and let the boiling water go up. He was very clear. I mean, he lost this election, and he said
Oh, he was
did.
waiting to get that
140
the
police
frog in the
officers
water
were
with the
beaten at the
boiling pot
Capitol
to
that
go up
day,
or whatever the
some
hell he
with the
said.
American flag. Several later died. And it wasn't just in there. In Minnesota, a group gathered on the state capitol grounds in St. Paul, and said, we're marching to the governor's residence and there may be casualties. The only person there was my son and his dog, who was rushed out crying by state police. That issue, and Mike Pence standing there as they were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence made the right decision. So, Senator, it was adjudicated over and over and over. I worked with kids long enough to know, and I said as a football coach, sometimes you really want to win, but the democracy is bigger than winning an election. You shake hands, and then you try and do everything you can to help the other side win. That's what was at stake here. Now, the thing I'm most concerned about is the idea that imprisoning your political opponents, already laying the groundwork for people not accepting this. And a president's words matter. A president's words matter. People hear that. So I think this issue of settling our differences at the ballot box, shaking hands when we lose, being honest about it, but to deny what happened on January 6th, the first time in American history that a president or anyone tried to overturn a fair election and the peaceful transfer of power. And here we are 4 years later in the same boat. I will tell you this, that when this is over, we need to shake hands this election, and the winner needs to be the winner. This has got to stop. It's tearing our country apart.
Margaret?
Senator Vance, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, well, look, Tim, first of all, it's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done for 250 years in this country. We are going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we win, and I think we're going to win. But if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it. But we have to remember that for years in this country, Democrats protested the results of elections. Hillary Clinton in 2016 said that Donald Trump had the election stolen by Vladimir Putin because the Russians bought like $500,000 worth of Facebook ads. This has been going on for a long time. And if we want to say that we need to respect the results of the election, I'm on board. But if we want to say, as Tim Walz is saying, that this is just a problem that Republicans have had, I don't buy that.
Governor.
January 6th was not Facebook ads. And I think a revisionist history on this. Look, I don't understand how we got to this point. But the issue was that happened. Donald Trump can do it. And all of us say there's no place for this. It has massive repercussions. This idea that there's censorship to stop people from threatening to kill someone, threatening to do something, that's not censorship. Censorship is book banning. We've seen that. We've seen that brought up. I just think for everyone tonight, and I'm going to.
Dog, you're not about to
thank
teach
Senator
my kids
Vance.
about reproductive
I
rights.
think this is the conversation
and
they want
gender
to hear.
affirmation in the
And I
book,
think
bro.
there's a lot of agreement. But this is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't
Senator,
wear masks.
the governor does have the floor.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have the floor for 1 minute to respond to you.
Yeah. Well, I don't run Facebook. What I do know is I see a candidate out there who refused, and now again, and this I'm pretty shocked by this. He lost the election. This is not a debate. It's not anything anywhere other than in Donald Trump's world. Because look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that election, that's why Mike Pence isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is Where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows he could do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that, because of course that's what we would do. So, America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Governor, your time is up. Thank you, gentlemen. We will be right back with both of our candidates. The CBS News vice presidential debate.
So they'll probably do final thoughts after that. Thoughts?
I think as it pertains to housing, it's like a lot of federal land is like west, right? And no one lives there, like, because like it's between the Rockies and like central, and there's no water. Like water can't get there, and people like generally don't live there. So what is this? They're going to build houses on this federal land? It's kind of confusing.
It's federal land in pretty much every state. It's not a lot of it. A
It's
lot
like
of it is
tiny.
well,
Like,
no. It depends on what state that you go into. It's not
well,
just all in the middle of
anything
America.
east is like there's nothing. There's very few states to the east that's over like 10%.
I don't know. I
It's
don't
tiny.
know. I
Everything to
haven't
the
studied
in the
it.
west is like 45 and up.
I haven't studied it, so I don't know it exactly. Carrie, what are your thoughts? Because I want to get a little bit of your thoughts in this also, and Slimmy.
One, I think that they're both doing a good job in like actual excuse me, actually discussing the stuff out. But the problem for me still is that Kamala and Biden are still in office. Like it, so it's difficult to listen to all of what they would do when they technically could be doing it now.
Yeah.
Then you can go and look at what Trump did. Like it's just it's hard. And then some of the issues that they keep bringing up for me personally just are not big issues for me. Like this whole January 6th thing, I don't
don't give
care
a
about.
fuck either.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So the
I really
maternity
don't.
thing, I have another thought on that. I won't do it right now because I know we've got to go back in, but it's just the issues that they keep focusing on. They're not. I don't know.
Well, I do remember during the pandemic, a lot of people lost their platform. A lot of people got censored, and a lot of people got kicked off of these social media platforms, and it affected their ability to earn. I got a warning because I had started talking about the jab and the vid. I got a warning, and I was getting censored for misinformation when I was giving my opinion on it. I remember that. And I just completely cut off having a conversation about it at all. So I do think that that is a form of democracy to be able to freely discuss what you think it should or shouldn't happen, and whether or not you think is good or not good for your family or for the general public. And I do remember that the Biden administration did censor us during the vid. And there's some people that still can't get back on the platform. And there was a lot of people when Elon Musk bought X, formerly known as Twitter, he released how they were kicking people off the platform and they were censoring them because of the things that they did not agree with from a liberal or a conservative perspective. And so that for me was a meaningful thing. I remember getting censored during that time. You could not mention the jab. That's where the name the jab came from, because people couldn't say the real name.
No,
Yeah, I was completely.
I will say that I didn't really grasp the censorship stuff until RFK was explaining it out. I mean, I knew about the stuff on YouTube, but when he took it to a whole nother level, I definitely started to see where that was important. At first, for me, again, that wasn't a big deal. But I get it, especially now when I see how many people follow what they hear. And this guy was on, I can't think of his name. He was on Joe Rogan not too long ago. And he was like, Joe, I have to vent. And one of the things that he said, they did a study that showed that if somebody is 50-50 on who they want to vote for, they were able to do research that showed that if ads and Google like controlled what showed up in their search engine, what was in front of their face, it changed to 90%
Yeah.
influence.
Welcome back to the CBS News Vice Presidential Debate. It is now time for the closing statement. Senator Vance won the virtual coin toss and elected to go last. So, Governor Walz, you are first. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Senator Vance. Thank you to CBS News. And most importantly, thank you to all of you. If you're still up and the folks who miss Dancing with Our Stars, I appreciate it. But look, the support of the democracy matters. It matters that you're here. And I'm as surprised as anybody of this coalition that Kamala Harris has built, from Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift, and a whole bunch of folks in between there. And they don't all agree on everything, but they are truly optimistic people. They believe in a positive future of this country and one where our politics can be better than it is. And I have to tell you, that better than it is the sense of optimism that there can be an opportunity economy that works for everyone, not just to get by, but to get ahead. And the idea that freedom really means something, not the freedom of government to be in your bedroom or exam room, but the freedom for you to make choices about yourself. Now, look, we all know who Donald Trump is. He's told us, and as Maya Angelou said, believe him when he told you that. His first inaugural address talked about American carnage, and then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that. Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will stand with Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road. Excuse me. Kamala Harris gives us a different option. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm going to be careful about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that. All the while asking everyone, join this movement, make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive.
Even though
humbly
she
ask for
already
your
in
vote
office,
on
right?
November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Governor Walz, thank you. Senator Vance, your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank Governor Walz, you folks at CBS, and of course the American people for tuning in this evening. And one of the issues we didn't talk about was energy. And I remember when I was being raised by my grandmother, when she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night and because money was often very tight. And I believe, as a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat in the middle of a cold winter night. That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that, too, has gotten harder with because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have the most beautiful country in the world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food, but have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught me is that we have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. They're not going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need change. We need a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well. Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance, thank you. And thank you both for participating in the only vice presidential debate of this election cycle.
Can't hear you.
Thoughts?
President Trump picked a hell of a running mate.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie. I think I want that dude to be the president.
I know. I was thinking that too.
I ain't gonna lie. That shit.
I
That
think it was a good
motherfucker.
debate. Like they left
Look at
all
the
the
difference between their
emotional.
girls.
Oh, he got him a little. What? She Indian. She Indian.
Hey, they say that the difference between, oh man, the difference between a great man and an average man is the quality of the woman that he next to.
Hey, that ain't fair because that dude,
No.
oh man, that old fossil.
I'm
Look
about
at
to
that.
say
I said
See,
the
Vance is
quality of
younger
the
than
God,
woman
us.
that he's
okay.
sitting
I
next to.
see you, JD. I see you, player.
Yeah, he got him a bad one,
Look, he
didn't he?
classy though. He classy. He classy.
Man, these moderators were better than the ones on ABC or the other one.
Yeah, they
No, they
were.
was the same. They was the same. They just weren't biased.
You said
You know what
these
I'm
are the
saying?
same women?
No. They were the same level. They just was biased.
Nigga, then
The
they're not the
last time.
same. Nigga, what the?
Then that's not the
They were the
same.
same, but they
No,
weren't biased.
they listen. They did the pressing. They was pressing, but they was only pressing Trump. You get what I'm
They're
saying?
not the
They was
same.
only
Then they're
pressing
not
Trump.
the same. They weren't the same then, nigga. They weren't the you can't say they're not the same and then say but and give a reason why they're not the same.
Okay.
That don't make no sense. They're
Y'all are
the
saying the
same,
same thing,
but
but
they
different.
did this different. Like, what you talking about? Anyway, they were good moderators.
Who do y'all think won a debate objectively?
Oh, that's like those. He was just way better. Even though I think he got caught up on that housing shit though. He got caught up.
You think so?
Yeah, he got kind of caught up. Like,
Who he?
I don't think that he had a
Vance.
weak moment. I don't think that he had a weak moment.
No. He said
I
that the
think that
migrants
Vance
was taking
definitely
all our
did.
houses. No, nigga, no, he didn't. I think he gave a good
He
answer
sounded,
about the shortage of houses. He gave a good answer, I think.
What was you about to say, Carrie?
No, I think Vance definitely did better. There was some I meant to write down when Vance he did divert on something, but he did it strategically. Like he did it well. I wish I would have wrote it down.
Yeah.
He avoided something, but
no, he went back to it. That January 6th shit.
was it the January 6th thing?
Yeah, he avoided it at first, and then he went back to it. He said, "I still want to answer your question," because he talked about something totally different, and then he went
That
back
was
into the
one, but
yeah. I
it
remember
was
that.
something else. I can't remember, but he to me Vance had a lot of tact. Like even with the thing about his Walz's son being involved in the shooting. I'm
Yeah.
not saying he didn't mean it when he said, I'm sorry to hear that, but like throwing stuff like that in, he just seemed like he had a lot more strategy behind what he was doing, and it came across well. But I don't think, I mean, to you all's point, I didn't see the first part. Walls, I think he definitely was able to hold his own for the most part. Um, it was definitely better than the presidential one, for
He was
sure.
just
Man, no,
he was
he the
messing with
same man. He was
Trump.
reading the script.
No, he was more genuine. He wasn't just like throwing like ad hominem attacks like Kamala. No, he was. I rock with him. Yeah, Watch was he was good. I
Yeah, they
think
weren't like up here beefing.
these two being presidential candidates probably will look a little better than that.
No,
But
I don't
See,
want no more fossils. I don't
that's
want no more
also what I
fossils.
learned.
well, that has to do with their
I don't want no more
as
fossils
far as their
president.
temperament's concerned.
But
I don't
that's
want
a
no more
big
fossils.
lesson that I learned from the Obama. I loved Obama, and this is hard for me to like accept some of what I've been learning. But
Fuck that nigga.
how important is it for the president of the United States to be able to win a debate?
I don't think
Not
that it's important at all.
So, and that's what like I Obama got me, but beyond him being a black president, I mean a black man, he got me because it's like he speaks so well. I sound like Chris Rock. He
No
speaks so well,
way.
but like
Listen, Carrie, I don't. You know why I don't believe that?
what?
Because you loved him before you ever heard him debate. So
No,
if you loved him before you
no,
even
I
heard,
didn't.
so you telling
Mm-mm.
me before you seen him debate, you were not already on in his camp to vote for him?
No, before, but no,
Hmm.
not debate. Speak. Let me say speak. I had to hear him speak first. When I first saw that he was running, I was like, man, this black man don't stand a chance. So I wasn't even paying attention to him. But
I,
then
I
when he started, huh?
I would guess that that's probably because of his name and the fact that he wasn't as well known, right?
Very true. Because I was
Correct.
like, his name sounds too much like Osama bin Laden.
Correct. Because I remember, and I was outside at that time, and so I already knew what you was gonna say. But once he started to endear himself to the general public, before he ever stepped on a debate stage, you was already feeling him.
Once he started speaking,
Before he stepped on a debate stage.
before he before he stepped on the debate stage, but you can listen to him speak and
But
you'll
but
say
but
he's well
listen, Carrie,
spoken.
your first question was how important is the debate to determine whether or not you are going to vote for a person, right?
Right.
With that in mind, with that question in mind, you were already in his camp before you ever seen him debate, right?
Yes.
That's my point.
So
Is that
I should
most
have said
people have already
okay,
made up their
let me
minds.
retract. Let me retract.
Okay.
How important is it for a presidential candidate to be able to eloquently their express themselves?
It
How
depends.
important is that?
It depends on if we have history with them. We discovered Vivek Ramaswamy um, throughout his ability to absolutely destroy everybody else that was on that debate stage with him in a Republican primary. We're discovering JD Vance now and his ability to be able to communicate effectively. And what he did was he put the cherry on top. And so now that and this is my opinion, I feel free to disagree, but now that we're discovering these people that were largely unknown, but now they got thrown into the national spotlight as a result of being the vice presidential running mates of their respective candidates, now we get to experience them. But most people, think about it. We know who Trump was way before this presidential election cycle started. And he never stepped foot on a debate stage because we seen who he was, even though it was Vivek Ramaswamy and Ron DeSantis and all of those people that was on the debate stage jockeying for the Republican presidential nomination, we still went with Trump because we have history with him and we have the ability to in hindsight to say, well, what was his 4 years in office? What was that like for us? And we can compare and contrast. So it didn't matter, right?
Mhm.
Doesn't matter if he stepped on a debate stage because most people in the United States of America already knew who they were voting for because we have history with them. But when you have a brand new candidate, we have history with Kamala Harris. This last 3.5 years, I've been on top of that shit for the last 3 years straight. On top of the migrant crisis, on top of her role in it, I was familiar with the fact that a bunch of her staff quit throughout her administration and they got the fuck up out of there. She didn't fire them, they quit. So my history with her and understanding exactly where she stood on specific policies informed my decision of whether or not I was going to vote for her. Didn't matter. Doesn't matter what she says. That's why I think that the vice presidential debate is much more important because we get to discover for the first time in a live setting their ability to communicate their thoughts clearly. And this is why a lot of people felt like this was more entertaining than any of the previous debates.
No, I agree with that. But the reason I brought that up was because one either Quentin or both of y'all or one of y'all said like I need them to be running for president, and I'm assuming that's based off of this debate and the way that they were able to express themselves and the way they were able to communicate. So my point was just because they're able to do that, does that mean that they technically are now qualified to be president over, say, a presidential candidate who may not be able to debate the way that they debated? That was my
But
point. And I was
it
saying,
does matter now because everything changed. You know when it changed?
well,
You know when it changed?
when?
2 months ago when Biden stepped
When
down and we
Biden,
automatically got given Kamala Harris, everything changed. Because now we're looking at it differently. In our lifetime, we have not seen this happen. This is the first time in our lifetime and our ability to be able to vote to say, wait a minute, we just got this thrust upon us. So
Pick one.
now, huh?
I said, they said, here she go, pick one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So now it's different because we're looking at the candidate. We never really gave a fuck about the vice presidential candidate. I remember when Obama was running and he picked Biden and they said, well, Biden will give him a little bit more experience because he's a newer person into the office and, he can help steady his hand and all of this stuff. We never
oh,
looked
I get
at
what you're saying.
Yeah, we
You're
didn't look
saying
at the vice president as a real contributing factor and the possibility of them actually stepping foot into the office. The
being
first time that we started having this conversation is this election cycle with Biden and Kamala. Even before we got Kamala Harris, the question was, who the fuck is running the White House?
Yo,
All this administration, we were like, who is running the White House and what the hell is
because
going
we
on?
know it ain't him.
And there's a lot of people that predicted that we was going to get Kamala Harris. Either if Biden ran and won, that they was going to give a layup to Kamala Harris and he wasn't going to be able to make it through his term, the second term, if he was to be elected, until we got that fucking debate and they kicked him out. Nancy Pelosi and all of them kicked him out. This was the first time in our voting history that we were able to assess and say, wait a minute, the vice president probably do matter.
that does matter. Do you think people are I didn't think about it that way, honestly. So I get what y'all are saying now. But do you think a lot of people are really now looking at it like that? Like, let me really pay
Absolutely.
attention to the vice president because they might
Absolutely.
be,
100%.
See, I don't.
Because we don't just listen, we got
They
hindsight
should.
now.
We should.
We got
should.
hindsight now because now the question isn't just whether or not that person can step into office, but we know that it's probably a 97-98% chance that whoever wins the president of the United States of America, the next person that's going to be at the top of the ticket to go for president of the United States of America in the next election cycle is going to be whoever that vice presidential candidate was.
Yep.
We're basically saying right now, because think about it. The closing argument of what JD Vance said was we're witnessing what Kamala Harris has already done over the last 3.5 years. We're getting a continuation of her. Basically, we're getting 3 terms of Kamala Harris if she was to win this term and the next term. Right? So what we're basically saying is you're getting Kamala Harris based off of our experience of her being a part of the Biden administration. How was it any different?
It ain't no difference.
The vice president is the person that casts a tie-breaking vote for a lot of these legislative issues and these policies that's being pushed through today. We seen that with Kamala Harris, with the Inflation Reduction Act, which basically increased inflation.
That's true. Hopefully people understand that more now. And again, for me, I can say personally, I did not know that the VP made those decisions until this election. So hopefully people are really taking this opportunity to learn enough so that they can really be moving forward with an educated mindset. But
Interesting.
But what
Sometimes I feel like I'm too aware of what's going on. Like
you
I've
are,
never been
but
any
that's good.
more suited to have conversations based off of politics than I am now.
I hate these motherfuckers for real.
I think that the normal American, they don't like in depth what we don't care about that. Like we care about taxes, our paycheck, healthcare. And that's pretty much it.
I don't think
We don't
so,
want you to
Quentin.
take our money. We want to be able to take
I
care
don't
of our
think so,
kids,
Quentin.
and that's it.
I don't think
I agree
so.
Uh,
with what Quentin's saying.
I disagree with what
Like,
Quentin
no,
is
we
saying.
don't care about foreign policy. We don't care about foreign policy. We don't like people in Oklahoma don't care about migrants because they ain't here.
I think that some of what Quentin is saying is true, but I don't agree with it 100% for 2 reasons. The
Well, I
first
didn't say
reason
100%.
is
I just said there's more Americans that care about less than what you do.
I don't believe that, because I think that once we got more segmented into groups and you can identify differently with groups, you can identify as a black person, you can identify as a black woman and you a double minority, you can identify as somebody as a part of the alphabet community, you can identify as this, you can identify as that. The minute that we started separating ourselves even more and segmenting ourselves is when we started having a vested interest, because I think that people care more about representation more than they actually care about policy. That's what
Well,
most
if you
people say that they voting based off of is representation. The minute that you got Obama in office, all of that shit went out the window. Obama was the precursor to separating ourselves more, and his lasting legacy is more or less about what it is that he did for the alphabet community and breaking open a door than it is about the type of policy and the way he governed.
So you're saying they don't even care about the things that Quentin named?
They don't. They really don't. Think about it.
you don't think
The
people don't care
Divine
about their
Nine
taxes
mobilized.
and
The Divine Nine mobilized behind Kamala Harris on day one. The first thing that
that's
they did
well,
was call for
I
Kamala
agree
Harris with the
with the whole
Divine Nine.
identity politics. I get it. I get that part. But just day to day, them niggas that be going to the polls with the I voted.
It's all
they ain't
identity.
gonna-
The people that put the think of, I'm telling you, man, Obama opened the door. When white people went broke, they was like, fuck this. We going for Trump. When white people started going poor, that shit went out. It was like, no, we gotta change. Enough of this. Because you never seen more poor white people mobilized behind a candidate than when Trump ran for office.
them motherfuckers came out the woodworks.
Everything.
Yeah.
And people started separating themselves more. I'm telling you,
What they call
when we just
silent?
had a bunch of white men to determine whether or not they was going to be president of the United States of America, we wasn't having separation with regard to picking and group and choosing. You only had Democrats versus Republicans. That was it.
You're right.
You never had this shit. You never seen it. This we in a way different era. You throw social media on top of that shit, it's over. Now we talking about the first fucking black woman. What's next? The first colored woman, the first Indian woman, the first Asian woman. How many different people has to
First,
have some level of representation? The first immigrant to get elected.
oh shit, that'll be a fucking that ain't
I'm telling
happening.
you, it's
Nah,
coming, bro.
they
I
was
won't be
already talking
alive.
about that. They was already talking about that because when Arnold Schwarzenegger when they was trying to
Yep.
make him the president.
Yep. They
Yeah,
got
they was
him
Well,
already
fucked
they
up
talking
don't.
out
about
of there.
that.
They got him up out of there.
They've always done this. They've always done this. It's just in different ways. Now they just using black people or people that look black. They're not
Yep.
actually black though.
Yep.
There's nobody's been black. They just wanted to look
We've
like.
never gotten to a point where we dug so far into people's heritage to figure out whether or
Yeah.
not they was even of what it is that we identify them as.
Let me see. Let me see if we got an update on some more
We did.
documents.
She did a whole stream saying, "I know her father, know the father." We did.
Her father isn't her father from Jamaica?
I don't know
Nope.
what her father is. All I know is identity is a huge factor. A
Yeah, it is.
huge factor. It's a massive thing. It's the whole idea behind this whole immigration uh thing right now. It's
Hmm.
identity. It's all
Just
identity. They create an entirely new voter base.
Just Joe Brown knew her daddy.
This shit's sad, man. Like that's
Telling
why
you.
I don't fuck with this that politics shit, man. It's a
You have
scheme.
to. You have to. You have to. You have
Yeah,
to.
Well, in a way,
I
they
think
don't.
most
I mean,
people
they
opt
don't do
out.
shit. They don't. The people that we see, they're not the ones that's pulling all the strings though. So it's a facade. You know, the real
Yeah,
people that's
but
pulling the strings, you don't know who they are.
we know who they are. Um,
Well, not. Oh, well.
we know who they are, bro. We know who. We listen. We know who is
We
who
know
and what
of
is
them.
what. We
Yeah,
know of
we
them.
know of them.
That's a fair
Yeah, we
assessment.
don't.
But
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
we
yeah. We
know
know
that
of
there's
them.
always been special interest groups that had a vested interest
Yeah.
in a politician becoming president of the United States of America. The question is, are we mindful enough and do we care enough to actually do the research so we can make an informed decision instead of what's just being marketed to us?
No, most people don't.
That's why you
Most
gotta
people.
care. That's why you gotta
Well,
care.
most people don't think for themselves.
If most
They
people did, then they
they
wouldn't
don't.
just vote based off of what their parents did. They would actually think for themselves.
Yeah, like most people. Like I mean, like when it comes to anything, a lot everybody's programmed. You know what I'm saying? Nobody. Very few. I'll say like maybe like 4% of Americans have broken out of their programming.
I think it's less than that.
It might be what?
I think it's
Goofy
less
It
than
like
takes a
4%.
lot. Yeah, it takes a lot to choose to come out of your programming.
Even
well,
you,
you
Slimmy,
don't know.
saying
You
you
don't
don't want to,
choose.
you don't want to deep dive into this shit.
You don't choose. It ain't a choice.
It is a
No,
You
it's
figure
choice.
it
definitely a
out.
choice. It's
You
definitely a
figure it out.
choice.
Nope, it's a
No,
choice.
well, no,
It's
yeah,
definitely a
in a way,
choice.
it is. Yeah. You actually, yeah, you're right. It is a choice because it's a lot of people who they try to give folks information and they completely reject it. They'll just completely reject it. They'll just be like, oh no, hell no, fuck that, no, this is the way shit is. Nah, motherfucker, this shit different.
Yeah.
Like once you start figuring out, like why it's censorship, like why they be pressing that shit so hard, like why they was really trying to keep shit under wraps, man, it's a whole like you can't talk about that shit on here. The
Yeah.
real reason that you even thought about getting a jab is because they've scared you into thinking that the person standing next to you is contagious, and that's
No, that
impossible.
wasn't why. The way that they got people to do it is that they threaten to take away their livelihood.
Well, yeah, well, no. Well, that's the direct way. That's the direct way, but it started a
No. I agree with
long
you
time
too.
ago.
It was a lot. Yeah, it was the fear tactics from dying, right?
Yeah,
Was the first wave of it. The second wave of it was, well, you can't fucking travel and you can't go to work if you don't
yeah.
take it.
See now
The third wave of
that
it
was
is if
fucked
you
up.
say anything negative about it, we gonna fucking take your job, we gonna take your platform, we gonna remove you from social media, and we gonna ban your ass.
Yeah, that type of that man. See, that's the shit that I don't fuck
But
with.
that's what JD Vance was just saying about Kamala Harris and Biden under that administration. 2021, 22, 23 motherfuckers was listen. I had to be on my best behavior for like 6 months. And then they was like, all right, we're gonna remove your warning. You back to regular status. Every fucking video that I uploaded, every live stream was yellow. Had to be checked.
And if I had a real email, Facebook probably would have been able to ban me, but they can't ban me because I don't use my college email no more.
Yeah.
Because it don't exist.
I'm
So they
telling you,
can't
and
get to
it
my
was some
profile.
people. It was some people that was tough. They was tough motherfuckers. Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna
Yeah,
say what I want to say when I want to say it. They was
they
like, all
was
right, come here, you
shutting
right here.
motherfuckers
You
down.
you a you a tough one. All right, let me go ahead and handle that.
Yeah, that's
People
when
like,
that. Oh yeah, that's when everything started popping up. All those
yep,
things, all
yep,
those question marks. Anytime you type
yep,
something,
yep.
yeah,
The
that shit
RZA
did start happening there, man.
Islams.
That was under this administration.
Yep,
The
the
fuck we
RZA
talking about?
Islams. All of them people. They all was
Oh
like,
man, yeah, they
boop.
lost hella pages. Farrakhan got kicked off of everything. He's not
Yep,
on social media at
yep.
all.
That's
He's not
true.
allowed on social media.
And
Well,
then people was
that's for a
scared to
different
say
reason.
anything about a small hat. All of that shit.
Yeah.
That shit was
Oh,
all during that time.
you still can't do that. You ain't gonna never be able to do that.
That's a fact. That's why I just said small hat.
You can't. Well, boy, they be having you walking a
I think that's
fine
why. That's
line.
part of the reason why Candace Owens got kicked the fuck off.
Oh no, that's why. That's why, cause she exposed their hand. They in some devilish shit, but
I don't know what they into. I don't know
yeah,
what the fuck
yeah.
they got going on.
I ain't about to say nothing. But yeah,
I don't know what they got
they
going on.
yeah. Anyway, yeah. But like the first thing that they did was they've been doing this for decades though. Damn near, yeah, decades because every time it's an election or around election time, they got some disease and you supposed to be scared and all that shit. But they only able to do that because they scared people centuries ago with germ theory. Like, well, they
Miss
ain't gonna
Q
do that.
says Candace is back, but yeah, she ain't monetized though.
Yeah, she's
Yeah, she
back.
can't get no money off this shit. Quentin,
She getting money, just not YouTube money.
you can't get no
Yeah,
money off
but I'm
YouTube.
gonna just tell
She's
you,
doing
YouTube money is
a
different.
lot of interviews with other people too.
YouTube money is
Yeah.
different. I'm gonna just tell you, I don't give a fuck what y'all say,
Nope, she just
And
got
the thing is,
$700,000 from CBS.
and that's good.
and
But
see, y'all,
let me tell you
Sorry,
something, bro. Listen. Honest to God, her platform is probably 5 to 10 times bigger than mine. Well, her live
How much
streams is
money?
definitely
How much money is she losing after she got demonetized? You think a
millions.
month? A
Oh,
month?
a month?
What?
Mm-hmm.
You said a month?
Yeah, a month. 2, 3.
I would say it's probably more than two, more at least $250,000 a month.
God
She
damn.
can't be. You don't think she could be monetized again? Like, how long does that
They
last?
can give
She
it
got to
back if they want to. Listen, bro.
she got to
Listen,
change her
listen.
whole stance though.
Last month in September, well, I make a lot of money, and I understand that I know how to monetize better than everybody else.
How much is engagement? Because she be having like 40 plus people watch her lives every time she log on.
It depends on how you structure your ads. It depends on. Listen. Fuck. Candace Owens have to be losing at least $250,000 a month.
Oof.
At least. Gotta be.
Yeah.
What?
Gotta be.
God.
Facts. That is a fact.
How do you know she's? How do you know she's not monetized now, though? Like, how do you
She
find that
says
out?
it. She told us. She talks shit about YouTube every day.
And you can't go and
Oh,
even give her like you can't if you want to go to the platform and you want to give like a super chat or
Ain't doing no
thanks, you can't do that shit.
oh,
Mhm.
I never caught her live. I always watch her
You can do
after
a
the fact.
super thanks even on a like when they not live. That's what I'm saying. You can do it on any video.
Oh, there go my
Listen, she
ignorance.
got built-in sponsors. That's cool. What I'm saying is, it's all you. It's not one or the other. It's not supposed to be one or the other. You're supposed to have sponsors, get the YouTube money, get everything. I don't give a fuck if I'm making $1 million a month from sponsors. That's a lot of money to leave on the table.
So if you, so like
All because
she
you want to
was,
talk about Socrates.
so she was when she's on someone else's platform, do they get penalized because she's not monetized anymore?
I I believe that when certain people, this is my belief. I believe that when certain people um YouTube don't like certain people that they don't like on the platform. If you go on, like if they kick you off and then you kicking it with them, you know what I'm saying, on another platform, they don't like that
You the
shit.
same. You the same.
And they may let it ride, but it's up to their discretion. But
Gotcha.
why would I even entertain it? Why would I even entertain it? Once they stop fucking with you, it's like, why do I gotta touch fire in order to get burned?
So Tom Billieu was probably safe. YouTube probably likes him.
I don't know who that is. Who's that?
Impact Theory.
Oh,
Tom.
I don't know if I ever watched him before.
Yeah, he got a good channel.
And I think
He
that
got he
she's
got
awesome. I
he got
think that
shut
she's
down.
great. I think she's great. I think she's awesome. Candace Owens and stuff. But I'm just saying that um
It
when
was
we talk
one
about
conversation.
money, she gotta be losing. Listen, she gotta be losing
It was after she had that
at
that
least 3 million a year
It was
minimum.
like a series within a week that she was like just talking about dark shit, and she was talking
Yeah,
about
she
the people
did.
with the little hats. I ain't gonna say their
the
name. She
JE.
was talking about
Yeah,
Socrates and all this stuff. And after that, they
Yeah,
was like, "Yeah, we gotta get her up out of here."
yeah.
it
I
was
seen
after an
that shit.
interview with
I
that
seen
guy.
that
I
shit
can't think of
coming a
his
mile
name.
away, bro. I
That
seen it
shit
coming a
was
mile away.
fucking weird. Like, and I heard her talking. I'm like, who even cares about this? Like,
I seen that coming a mile away. I stopped talking about her after a while. I was like, damn. I just seen it coming. I seen it coming a mile and a half away, bro.
Why did they ban Andrew Tate though?
cause that nigga, by and large, his rhetoric is misogynistic as fuck.
I don't know.
By the powers that be,
Bullshit.
that's what they think.
By the powers that be, you are correct. But I personally, I
I
don't
was
think
about
so.
to say, man, like personally, I don't think nothing
The
wrong with
bigger
none
you
of that.
get, the more you have to be. You have to
You gotta walk the
rein
fine
it the
line.
fuck in. If you got twenty
That's
thousand subscribers, you'll be alright. You know what I'm saying? You get about 50,000 subscribers. That's probably the sweet spot. It's the sweet spot of you being able to say what the fuck you want to say, and people can't really come after you because it's like YouTube is kind of like, no, they on the up in the comment. As long as you're not saying nothing too egregious, too serious, they let you rock. You know what I'm saying? Sweet 50 to 100,000. That's the sweet spot of just being able to get away with everything. You could get away with anything at 50 to 100. I think once you pass that threshold of 100, now you have to start being a little bit more careful. You got to start
Now,
tiptoeing a little bit.
well, I never even got to talk to you about this because you crossed over the 400,000 mark.
On the Anton Daniels channel.
Yeah, on Anton Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
How do you walk that fine line?
I mean, what do you mean? I don't say anything crazy. I just give my opinion. Like, you know
Yeah,
what I'm saying? There for me, there is no line to walk because I'm not talking about nothing. I talk about popular culture and whatever the subject is. I give my opinion. I preface this by saying, you know what I'm saying? This is my opinion.
yeah. But you speak about Kamala a
Yeah.
lot.
What? So yeah, but I speak specifically about things that are happening in society. We do have an immigration problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
So
saying?
they don't,
I'm speaking.
so they
I
ain't
I
tripping on that
react.
shit.
I react to the things that she says, and then I give my opinion about it. That's not conspiracy theory. That's not none of that. If she do an interview and that shit is all fluff, but then I can fact check it and go and look at legislation and policy that's been passed in 2023 to debunk it. What is, you know what I'm saying? What is there to talk about?
I was just curious because it's like, man, they do so much with that
Listen, if you
censorship shit.
start talking about, I'm gonna tell you what the sensitive subjects are. If you start talking about um like let me see, how can I put this? If you start talking about like like they're trying
Nine
to,
11, 9/11,
yeah. If you start talking
like
about stuff like that,
going into 9/11,
yeah,
and you
you
start
start
talking
deep and diving.
about
And I'm not talking about giving your
Nazis.
opinion by saying
Can
that, hey man,
wait?
I
Can
don't
you even
agree
say
with it
that?
happened. I mean, you
Can you
you should
even
probably, you
say?
should be able to be fine. But if you start talking about that and start trying to debunk shit,
Okay, yeah,
you know
okay.
what I'm saying? You start going down that path. Now you all right. They're gonna probably keep their eye on you.
What Hitler and them did, they
And
gonna get on you.
who he did it
You
to.
can't
If
talk.
you
I
start
know you
getting,
can't talk about
Correct,
that.
correct. Like
if
if
you
you
go
start
too
trying
deep
to, if
in
you
who he
start
did it
trying to,
to,
it's different
Yeah, that's
between,
what I'm.
it's different
Like
talking
if you try
about,
and debunk that,
it's
if you
different
try and
talking
debunk that, I
about
know they're gonna
popular
cancel you.
culture and what's happening today and giving your opinion on, historical references versus trying to debunk or say that things didn't happen. You see
Okay.
what I'm saying now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You start saying that things didn't happen and shit like that, that's when you start to get on the fucking radar. If you even do that, I'm gonna tell you the two things. Anything related to trying to debunk something that people are sensitive about, that's number one. And then number two, if you start talking about kids,
What about
and
kids?
like for example, I believe, and I haven't talked to her about this or anything like that, but one of the reasons why Pearl got kicked the fuck off is because I believe she was like doing a street interview with somebody's like it was an underage daughter, a 16-year-old or some shit like that. And this is my theory. I don't know for sure. And the parent asked, "Hey, remove my daughter off of your fucking stream." And I think she refused, and she tried to talk tough or some shit like that, and that shit just went left.
Damn. Oh, she ain't on
Yeah.
YouTube no more.
No, she there. She just ain't monetized.
Shit, man. They ain't putting no
Like
motherfucking.
the bigger you are, the more responsible you have to, like. You can't put no underage person's opinion. You know what I'm saying? Like you just can't do. It's certain things that you just can't do.
hmm
They're not paying as much attention to you because you're not getting as much traction when you got 25,000 subscribers. You start getting into the hundreds of thousands and the millions. Fresh and Fit,
Yeah,
there was doing live stream, and it matters what you do on other people's platforms. They was doing live streams with hoods on and shit like that. You can't do that.
huh? Like KKK hoods?
Yeah, Slimmy, you don't have to always say the word either, just to let you know.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know you couldn't say. I didn't know you couldn't say
I
that.
mean, you can say it, but just in general, like they
Yeah.
start
Okay.
doing dumb shit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
What?
I think that the dumbest thing that Fresh and Fit ever did was get into a beef, a long-standing beef. It was so stupid. It was so dumb. And it was like, I can't believe y'all, because ain't nobody gonna even give a fuck about the beef a year from now, 2 years from now. But y'all fucked up y'all money over that shit. Going back and forth, I would have just let them say whatever they wanted to say. Man, fuck that. We running up a bag over here. Let's do what we do. Let's focus on what we do and let's run it up.
Damn, that's crazy.
Run it up. We gonna focus on what we doing and the core of what we. I'm not getting into no beef. That ain't even the type of platform that they was. They wasn't even. They not even suited for beef. Focus on doing what you do. Stupid, man. People. I watch people all the time get tricked out of their bag. They always get tricked out of their bag. Always. I never, ever, ever. Listen, say what you want to say. Say what you want to say. I'm gonna run it up over here.
Hmm.
I'm gonna run it up. Ain't got time to be sitting there going back and forth with nobody.
Run it up, run it up.
Not on no personal shit. Like
That's
I'm
how
not
we
go. I'm
ball
not
out.
like I can compete with you on like platform. My platform better than yours or something like that, or we can debate. But I'm not about to personally start attack. Like I'm not going on no talking about. You know what I'm saying? That shit was dumb. Like nah, man. Nope. At the end of the day, you do what you do. I'm gonna focus on what I got going on. Give a
But
fuck.
you
When
got
it
you got
start,
you got to say like over the course of I don't know how long you've been here, Slim, but as the course of the time, like all the people who had beef with Anton, they faded to black. They all gone. That nigga still here smiling and shit. Them niggas just like quietly disappeared. Niggas just like
Yeah. A lot of people a lot of people I'm sure tuned in for the potential drama because I know I did.
toxic, Carrie.
Quentin trying to give away my trade secrets. Quentin is giving away my trade secrets. He giving away my trade secrets.
I ain't saying not there, nothing else.
Quentin is trying to give away my trade secrets. Nope, nope, nope. But yeah, man, it's like time. Just give it time. Time is gonna it's gonna make everything shake. It's gonna all of the people that listen. I remember it was a bunch of people that came against me because I didn't stand with them on blackity black issues. And I told him, I said to everybody, I said, I'm gonna win. I win. I am a winner at the end of the day. Y'all could think how y'all want, y'all could feel how y'all want. Watch how this shake out. I'm gonna win. I'm always on the right side. I'm on the right side of history, and I play the long game. I'm not about to sit here and play the short game with these motherfuckers that want me to fuck y'all. I, I'm playing a long game. And we're gonna see,
What
we're gonna
hotel
see how
you?
it
What
shake.
hotel you at? That's a good view. What hotel you at?
I'm at the Vidara.
Oh, that's nice.
That look
Yeah, I
crazy.
got the whole view of the
Is that like
city.
right next to the Cosmopolitan? It's like the
It's connected to the
Cos-
Aria,
Aria. Okay, that's
Cosmopolitan,
the one.
Bellagio. Yeah, it's a dope view. I got the whole city behind me.
Man, I remember the first time I went to Vegas, nigga. We stayed at the Palms, and that was the dumbest shit ever because we seen
I
that shit
got a
on the Real
whole
World.
loft. I got stairs. I got a kitchen
Yeah,
over
nigga.
there.
If I end up there, nigga, I have some more kids, nigga,
I
and shit on
got
that couch.
I got a
I've
loft up
been, I've,
top.
I've,
I got
I've been the girl over on that rail right there.
I
Hell
got a
yeah.
whole bedroom at the top. I
Man,
got
that shit look
TVs and
crazy.
shit. Yeah, I got a whole penthouse up here, so it's a little different for me.
Yeah, I just stay at the regular ass.
Woo-wee.
Like the first time I went to Vegas, we stayed at the Palms, and that's like off the strip, and that shit was a rookie move. And after that, we just stay at the Luxor, like $100 a night rooms.
Yeah. So I'll be in this bitch like a residence, bro. Like I got a whole everything. I got multiple bathrooms. I got everything. So
For what? 2 people?
I just like to be comfortable, bro.
That nigga like space.
Yeah, I like to be comfortable. I like to have a living room. I got a dining room
I
over
see
there.
Sharita over here timing people out. I see you, Mama Daniels. She
Are
said,
you
"Get
out
him
there
out
for
of
long,
here."
Anton?
Huh?
Are you out there for a long time?
No, I've been out here since. How long have I been out here? I've been out here since Saturday.
Okay.
Here, let me
I was
turn the
trying
lights
to
on so
see.
you can see. It's kind of partyish in here because we had a little party, but like you can see, I got a dining room area.
No, I was trying to
I
see
got the kitchen over there, all of that.
if you were out there when Joe was out there.
Oh yeah, nah. Yeah, I'll be out. I'm gonna fly back tomorrow afternoon. So yeah, I'm chilling, man. It's a dope view. You know what I'm saying? I can see the whole city,
That
see
shit be
everything.
crazy.
Can
Yeah,
you see the water
Vegas.
fountain for the Bellagio down from there?
No, so that's the other side.
Okay.
I could see the Raiders, T-Mobile Arena,
So it's not
MGM.
facing the strip?
I'm facing the opposite way. So
Gotcha.
like if you look over this way, see that
Mm-hmm.
pink right here, right here?
That's the Rio.
That's T-Mobile Arena.
Oh, gotcha.
And then right there,
I don't think I've been there since then.
is the Raiders Stadium right here. And then if I flip around, I can see the Aria and all of that shit over there. So
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
yeah. So
I don't think I've been since they built all the new arenas and shit.
dog, they got so much new shit here.
They're
It's
building something
insane.
else now too.
They
Dude, I
building
used
that.
to
They about to implode the Tropicana. The Oakland A's is moving here.
Aren't they building like a
do Oakland.
I
Everybody
want to
getting the
call
hell
it
up out of
amusement
Oakland,
park,
man.
but
Nigga,
like
Oakland lost all they people.
Yeah.
How's Oakland? Man, that's crazy, man.
But is they gonna just like the Las Vegas Raiders now, right? Used to be the
Yep.
Oakland Raiders,
Yeah,
now
the
it's the Las
Raiders.
Vegas Raiders. The Oakland A's, I think, is gonna be built right on top of the Tropicana. I see so much new shit that's going up over here, bro. Fountain Blue is up now. Resorts World is popping. It's a lot of
Dude,
stuff
we used
that's
to when
here,
I
man.
first started working for where I work right now. We used to go like once a month. Me and like 5 niggas, we just go to Vegas and act up.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it got old and we started having kids and shit.
Yeah, they just cheated my Browns, so that sorry ass football
There
team.
was a lot of Browns fans here. There was a lot of them on my plane on the way here.
Yeah, we was showing
Or
out, man. Yeah,
Deshaun, he need to go ahead and call it a day. He washed up.
hey, listen. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I do, nigga. I watch football with my eyes. That nigga
No.
can't play football.
You started wrong.
They
You don't know what you're talking
No,
about.
that
oh,
nigga's washed up, nigga. No,
Universal.
you wrong, nigga.
my
All right.
hotel is
Watch the games. Stop watching
is
the
That nigga,
directly
games.
connected
you
to the
got niggas who
Bellagio.
played football and commentators that said that nigga done. Nigga ain't played
How's he
football in
done?
over.
How's he
He ain't
done when he
played
throwing
football over
pinpoint
3.5
passes?
years, nigga. How are you just good and you haven't played the game in 3.5 years? You don't just.
He's throwing
Nigga, you gotta
pinpoint.
practice the
He's still
game.
throwing.
You have to practice the game to be
Quinn,
good.
Quinn.
You can't talk. This came from Ocho
Quinn.
Cinco and Shannon Sharp. So
Quinn.
what Slimmy says that ain't never played it down in
So
football, it don't matter.
okay.
It don't matter. It
Are you
don't
gonna
matter.
listen?
You
Are you
ain't
gonna
never played
listen?
in the NFL, it don't matter.
Are
It
you gonna
don't matter.
listen? First
No,
off,
I'm not
Ocho
gonna listen.
Cinco can't read a playbook. He couldn't read a playbook. That's why he got cut from the Patriots. Let's talk. You want to talk real? You don't know what you're talking
That
about.
nigga was in the NFL for
Ocho
like 10
Cinco
years. What are
got
you
cut
talking
from the
about? You're
Patriots because he
talking shit
couldn't
on a
read a
person that was in
playbook.
the NFL for 10 years and still gets paid from the NFL. That's
He
weird.
couldn't read a
That's weird.
playbook.
That's weird.
He
That
couldn't
nigga,
read a playbook.
the nigga, he
And I
played for
don't
the
care what
Bengals for like 10 years. What are you talking about? He's like
for
one
the
of the top
Bengals.
receivers ever to play the game. What are you talking about?
No, he's not. He was good for the Bengals, and when he moved on to the Patriots, he got cut from the team because he couldn't read the playbook. Come on, bro. You got to know what you're talking about.
Who said that? You heard it from the media? You heard it on, you
Find
got
out
sources?
why he got cut from the team. No,
Nigga,
and
you read it on
you
the
can see it
internet?
in the
You read it on the
games,
internet?
and
You know
you can
somebody?
see it in the
You know
Quinn.
somebody?
You can see it in the games when he couldn't get open.
No, nigga. You
Yeah,
read that shit on
yeah,
somebody's blog, nigga.
yeah. Yeah, but
Nigga,
if
you
you watch
can't
the
talk shit
actual
about
Browns
niggas who
game,
did
which I know you
this
can't
shit at the
because
highest
you're in
level,
Oklahoma,
and you can't say shit about
you
it.
can't
Nope.
watch.
Nope.
I
Nope.
understand you can't
Nope.
watch pro
You
football
taking up for a
because
nigga
you in
who ain't did
Oklahoma.
shit. You
Y'all
taking
don't
up
have
for a
no
nigga
pro
that ain't did
football
shit
team.
who did it at the highest level for 10 plus years. Nope. Nope.
Listen, sir,
Deshaun did. That nigga was
I
good for one
understand
motherfucking
because
year and ain't
I
did shit since.
understand.
1
I
year, nigga.
understand.
Deshaun Jackson was
Y'all
good.
don't have
That
no
nigga was
pro
good.
football team.
Deshaun,
Deshaun Watson is
that nigga was
fine.
good for 1
Deshaun
year.
Watson is fine. He's
That
fine,
nigga was
bro.
good for 1 year, nigga.
No, he fine, man. He
1
gonna
year.
be
That
all
nigga
right.
was good for
He was
1
throwing
year.
dots. He threw it. Hey, look. Ask them if that pass that he threw to Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper got like 5 drops. He lead the NFL in
That
drops.
nigga said that pass. That nigga said that pass. One
Because
singular
it was at the
pass,
end of the
nigga.
game and they called it back. We actually
That nigga
scored a
said that
touchdown to take the
pass.
lead, and they called it back. Because that was the whole point of me talking about it, because they cheated him. You know what I'm saying? But
Deshaun
you got it.
Watson is done as an NFL quarterback. Live with it.
I didn't say
Who's that?
I didn't say Ocho Cinco wasn't nice. I said he couldn't read playbooks, and that was exposed
And I
when he
said
went to
his
the Patriots.
opinion on a quarterback in the NFL means more than yours. They
What
had
are
a
you
whole
talking
panel.
about?
They had a whole panel of NFL plans telling why Deshaun Watson is done, and it's because he hasn't
And
practiced.
if they was
He
watching the
hasn't
games
played
and watching the
football in
film,
over 3
I
years, and
watched
he
the film.
sucks. He
Quinn,
sucks. He
Quinn,
sucks.
you don't know what you're talking
Shut
about.
this shit down, Anton. I'm tired of this
You
nigga.
don't know what
Shut
you're
it
talking
down.
about.
Shut it down.
You don't know what you're talking about.
That nigga
If you
sucks.
go back and this is how I know you just listening to people that's in the media.
No,
If you
I've
go
seen
and
that
you
nigga.
watch
That nigga sucks. He
listen
sucks.
for
Pull up his
understanding
stats.
and not to
Go to
respond.
ESPN and pull up his stats.
Listen for
One moment.
understanding
One
and
moment.
not to respond.
No, I'm not emotional, nigga. I deal with stats. Let me see what these niggas talking
Oh,
about.
no, don't deal with
Let me
stats.
see.
You got to deal with
Nah,
them
nigga,
when you're
we
talking
dealing with
about
stats,
football.
nigga.
This is
This
how I know you
nigga
don't know
said
what you're talking
don't
about.
deal with stats.
You're a
Nah,
little bit
nigga,
out your depth.
I'm about to shut
You're a
this
little
shit
bit
up
out your
now.
depth this
One
time. Because if you
supremacy.
go and you watch the film,
Deshaun
you will see Deshaun Watson don't look bad. He's not
Watson
making
is the
bad throws.
last
He's making
quarterback
good
in the
reads.
NFL in QBR. That nigga is QB 31. He's the last one on the list, nigga. Get the fuck off this. Get out of here, nigga. He's the
Oh,
last one on the list.
okay. So
He's
Quinn,
the
let me
last
tell you
quarterback
something.
on the list
So
in
are you
QBR.
gonna continue to be loud and wrong? You gonna continue to be loud
I'm
and
looking
wrong,
at the stats.
or you gonna
Deshaun
listen?
Watson, QB 31,
Are you
nigga.
going to listen, or you gonna
This nigga
continue to
is
be loud and
31.
wrong?
He's the
Are
last
you going to
quarterback
listen,
on
or you gonna
QBR.
continue to be loud and wrong?
QBR is they weight quarterbacks. He's 31.
That's
Conversation
cool.
over. He's
That's cool.
the
No, the
last.
conversation.
He's the
No, you're
worst
not gonna
quarterback
just
in
read
the
off.
NFL by the stats.
Quinn, you're loud and you're wrong. You're
Nigga,
loud
I'm
and you're
looking at
wrong.
the stats, nigga. What the fuck?
I don't give a fuck about no stats. We're not talking about the stats.
Oh,
We're
you one of
talking about.
them. That you didn't look at my dick and say I'm a girl because you don't care about stats. That's weird.
What?
That's super weird, nigga. That nigga said we don't give a fuck about stats.
Quinn,
Nigga, I'm literally looking at it right now, and you're saying you don't care.
Quinn, stop. Because if
No,
you go and
nigga,
watch the
it says
film,
he's 31. It says he's last. It says he's last.
I don't give a
I'm
fuck
looking at
about
it.
him being last.
QBR. It says
I
he's
don't give a
last.
fuck about him being last in
QBR.
QBR.
That is
That
the
doesn't
rating that the
explain.
NFL rates the
Hey,
quarterbacks.
listen.
And it says
Can
this nigga
you
is
stop talking the
23.
same shit
This
over and
nigga's
over again?
QBR is 23. Josh Allen, the top nigga, is 82. This nigga sucks. He sucks donkey dick, nigga.
Okay, you done talking. So can you be quiet? Can
No,
you be quiet?
nigga, unless you have some
Can you be
stats, I don't
quiet
want
and
to
let me
hear
talk?
it.
I'll let you
I
talk.
don't
Can
want
you
to
be
hear it.
quiet?
Unless you got some stats to pull up and
Can you
not
be
some
quiet?
one pass, I don't want to hear it.
Can you be
I don't
quiet?
want to hear it.
I'll let you talk.
Quinn,
Okay,
you gotta
so
let
you don't
him.
want to
You
have a
gotta
real
let him.
debate.
You gotta let
You
him.
just want to
No,
be
Let
loud
I
him
and talk.
don't. All I need to know is
Okay,
right here
so
on
be quiet.
ESPN.
So be
It's
quiet
on
and let me speak my facts. You read off a QBR stat. The Browns have had 4 centers this season. 4. That's injuries. We don't have our starting tackles. So we have the worst line in the NFL. The worst. We had the best line in the NFL for 3 years when Baker Mayfield was here. Please shut the fuck up talking about the Browns.
You literally
You go
brought
and
up
you
other
look at the
people.
film.
You brought up
Please be
everybody
quiet
but
and let me
Deshaun.
finish. I
You
stopped
blame the reason
talking.
that
I
nigga
stopped
sucked on
talking.
everybody else.
I stopped
You
talking so you
blame the
can read
reason
your
that nigga
stats.
sucked on everybody
I
else.
stopped talking so you can read your stats. Right?
Nah,
So
nigga,
you gotta listen
you
to me
told me
now.
my stats was wrong.
You gotta
Nigga.
listen
You
to
said
me
my
now.
shit didn't
I stopped
matter.
talking so you can read your
You
stats. You
said
gotta
Ocho
listen to me now.
Cinco didn't matter. You said
You gotta
ESPN
listen to
didn't
me now.
matter. You said all the people that matter don't matter.
Because I don't
That
listen to the
nigga
media.
Slimmy from
That's your
YouTube
source. It's
matter
not
more
mine.
than the niggas who did it.
I go watch the film. Deshaun Watson's not making bad reads. He's not making bad reads. They lead the NFL in drops. The Browns lead the NFL in drops. Deshaun Watson is not the problem. We have horrible play calling from Kevin Stefanski. He's been horrible at play calling since he got here. He don't believe in the run. We got Nick Chubb. We had Nick Chubb. He did not utilize Nick Chubb, hardly none. Nick Chubb I don't even think he had but 5 games where he had over 25 carries. He's the best running back in the NFL, hands down. And they don't utilize him. Then he got hurt, and they had to go and try and get Kareem Hunt back. He doesn't believe in running the football. He wants to throw the ball. We have the worst line in the NFL. Think about how this sounds. And you trying to force Deshaun Watson to throw the ball every play. He's running for his life. You don't know what you're talking about. He's not
You don't
making
know what you're
bad
talking about.
reads.
You just
He's
said
not even
Chubb was the
making
best
bad
running back in the
throws.
NFL, and that's wrong
He's
too.
not even
Derrick
making
Henry
bad
is.
throws.
Derrick Henry's the best
I've
running back
seen
in the
4
NFL. It's not Chubb, it's Derrick
interceptions
Henry.
off tip
Hey,
Wrong
passes
Carrie,
from
again.
my top
you know
receiver.
what I see? You know what I see, Carrie?
What do you see?
I have stats and Slimmy
You know
just
what I see,
spouting
Carrie?
off shit that he don't know.
What'd
I'm
you
looking
see,
at the
Anton?
numbers.
What do you think that if you knowing who I am, what do you think I see?
Oh God.
If you had to guess, what do you think I see?
With regard to this,
Mm-hmm.
2 guys who are more passionate about something that
Sports
does
and this fucking
absolutely nothing
politics.
for them.
Fuck politics. Let's
than-
talk about sports,
I
nigga.
see. Let me tell you what I see. Oh man, the chat is fucking on it. The chat is fucking on it. I didn't even realize what the fuck was happening.
Oh, he thinking of a sports show. That's a
They
good one.
perfect. These motherfuckers
Yeah.
is passionate.
Nigga, nah,
You
because
might.
I'm gonna have all my papers laid out for everything this nigga say. Nigga talking about.
These
Y'all
dudes
might
is
as well
perfect.
benefit from it.
They
Oh, man,
perfect.
that's funny.
Did you see how they argued? They both on different sides of the fence. Both of these motherfuckers love sports.
And
I didn't even know Slimmy loves sports to the point to where this motherfucker is breaking down the line, the reads, watching the tape and shit like that.
Oh,
This is the
hell
first
yeah.
time.
That
Listen,
nigga
I have
said
never.
Kevin
Talking
Stefanski,
about the
nigga.
motherfucking Browns.
I didn't
Talking about the
realize.
Browns.
I didn't
That's
realize
my
what.
quarterback.
I'm telling you, bro. I think I figured it out. That's why I was just listening. I'm just looking like.
This
Wait
nigga
a
so
minute. I think we
stupid.
got something
McCaffrey
here.
was, nigga, is, nigga. We talking about what is, not was. Currently is Derrick Henry by the numbers. Nigga, McCaffrey's fucking hurt. What are you talking about? I fucking niggas will say anything. This
It's
nigga's
only
talking about a
until
hurt.
Chubb come back.
This nigga's is talking about a hurt player, nigga.
It's only
This
until
shit is so
Chubb come
dumb.
back.
Well, currently
It's
this
only
nigga
until
Derrick Henry is
Chubb.
running nigga gaping holes through niggas.
Yeah,
No,
Anyway,
we're
no,
gonna
man.
have to figure this shit
Gotta
out.
see
Carrie.
y'all don't understand
you
how
need to
people
figure out that weather shit because nigga, the shit's about to be popping. We got about three hurricanes in the Atlantic.
get that weather shit up. So,
Cause see, Quentin don't give a fuck about
he's trying.
rap. Quentin don't care about music and rap music.
yeah, you don't.
Slimmy don't give a fuck about politics.
Yeah,
These
I
y'all
don't give
both,
a
both
fuck
got
about it. I
super
don't fuck with
charged.
politicians though. I don't
but
fuck with
they
politicians.
fucking love. You get them. We wasn't even talking about sports. They just randomly start navigating into this shit. Next thing you know, it turned out into a
Oh yeah.
full-out war.
Oh man, I
What
love
is it?
sports.
What is it about sports though? Like, I mean, not that I like basketball. Football's not really my thing. But what is it about sports for men that gets? I'm not saying women are not like this either, ladies. So don't come at me. But what is it about sports that get men so into it where they'll go back and forth like that? Like, what is it about the sports?
Because we dominate shit. And it's about fucking dominating.
Play.
You know when
Yeah.
you freaking turn around and hand the ball off and just niggas just knocking niggas.
So is that a part of it, Quentin? Like, are you mentally there? Because
Even like this is crazy. Y'all would think this is crazy. I make money from it. Don't judge me. I play like over 40 games a day on my video game. And it's not even about the money. It's about this nigga on the under end of my video thing thinks he's better than me. No, nigga. No, you're not. You're not better than me. You're not smarter than me. And I'm about to kick your ass and take your money.
Well, the thing is, for me, is just I understand things in a different depth than most people because I actually watch it. I don't just watch like the plays. I'm watching alignment. I'm watching alignment. But when it's crazier with basketball because I actually played and I understand basketball way more than I understand football. Football, I'm okay. But when it comes to basketball, I mean, I talk with basketball players about it. Dudes that played in the league, a bunch of people. It's just what I like to talk about, basketball more than anything. Like I know about pick and roll, all type of defenses, plays, all type of shit. With
Did you hear
football,
that? I
About to get a bag.
won't say shit about basketball. I won't say shit. I don't give a fuck.
Football.
I
you
don't
don't
know shit
like
about
basketball?
basketball. I don't know not in that shit. I didn't watch basketball. I knew
Caitlin
Michael
Clark.
Jordan. I knew that nigga, and then I knew the Oklahoma City
For
Thunder.
me,
Nigga, and that's
basketball
it.
is way easier to
Clark.
follow than football. I can't follow like football. I
The
need
college
somebody
football
to explain
nigga,
too much.
when I go over to his name is Fanatic Perspective. Shout out to my nigga Steven. We got all the stats. We talk about every recruits and everything. The line, nigga, we look at all of it, nigga.
All right, so listen, we're gonna
Punch
wrap
trips
this up.
wide open, nigga. Holla at me.
We're gonna wrap this up because Sound
Nigga, hell,
Dog.
Rita said, "Come on over here." Hey,
Nah, it ain't got
Rita.
nothing to do with her. I gotta because I got a flight to catch tomorrow, so I gotta make sure that everything is prepared and running smooth. You know what I'm saying? While I'm in the air. So
yeah.
we gotta make sure that Slimmy get his rest, because Slimmy
Console.
and that Quentin get his rest. Because they babies.
I'm off. I'm about to go get me some high fructose corn syrup and get on the game.
Hey, I'm about to get on the game myself, man.
All right, let me see. They about to get on the game. That's who they are. Let me read some of these super chats. Let me buzz down these super chats before we go. JD is good. At least Walz is better than Kamala. Draco says Walz looking at Vance like Biden looked at Trump. J Dub says so fact checking only works against JD, huh? Turtle says Tim and Cam trained by the same person. Aja says violins when you look like a sucker. Hashtag cooked. T writes, Anton looks so proud of JD Vance. Aaron says she actually died because the abortion pills didn't work and caused an infection in her uterus. In fact, not getting an abortion would have saved her. It's talking about that girl that they kept referencing. LA Cloud says, I feel better about paying taxes on a girl who wants their child versus a girl who messes around and now wants to rid the kid of terrible choices made by her. All I hear is extreme cases. Fade TV says, next time I want to change the subject on my girl, I'm going to say, there's a lot to talk about, so we need to move on. Chris Mayberry says, Carrie definitely looking great over there. Carrie got fans. Victor Williams, I just got to get a picture of her so I can put her on the cover. Victor Williams says, Tim going up against Godzilla. We knew it was going to be a slaughter when he was announced as VP. JD is a monster at debates. Yeah, he was a monster. Delta Fox says Walls look like a Droopy the dog. Sia says Tim is getting longer than 2 minutes. Time him someone. Joshua says the moderators are way better than the ABC. Coach Ice says, Uncle Anton, why don't you run for Congress? Jenny G. Shout out to my girl Jenny G. Steven Stewart says JD had a dope fiend mama and made it to Yale. Coach Cheese says, y'all go smash that like button and Aunt Carrie, I DM you 5 times trying to get off Q's wish list. It's to get on the panel. Shout out to Baltimore. Biz Q says Kamala Harris took a photo with a family slave, freed at 72 years old, but chose to remain as the help, and Cam Kim called her grandma for votes. Real Millennial coming soon says Walz look like Mad TV logo. He did. BizQ says debates help Trump expose how the media is biased. P. Rothstein 216 says my mother gave me an Obama speech before he ran for the Senate. I didn't know what he looked like, but the speech, The Audacity of Hope, was probably the best speech I heard to date. I was hooked, but he made me conservative. I was hooked, but he made me conservative. Okay. Ripside 2 says go back to Kennedy and Nixon for the importance for debates. Remember the sweat on Nixon. Samantha Gary says Obama was put in office to get an embassy in Africa. Ripside 2 says this really needed a third party candidate. I'd have voted for Perot. The Legacy says, yeah, I know that's right. Nobody pays attention to the VP, whereas Pence and Cheney. Yo, Wall says he is friends with school shooters. He did say that.
He ain't mean that.
Get Drevel too. Shout out to you. Unbiased Ross
Somebody
says
gonna
I
clip
wasn't
that shit
scared
up
of
and they're
cooties.
gonna take it totally out of context.
I wasn't scared of cooties being jobless. Did it? Fade TV says Candace Owens' husband is a multi-millionaire. She says she don't care about the money. She just has a passion for real journalism, and I respect that. Fuck that. Everybody care about the money. Don't let nobody lie to you. Don't give a fuck who it is, even if it's Candace Owens. Everybody cares about the money. Don't let nobody lie to you. Tim Wall says I become friends with school shooters. Right, you know what I'm saying? Because why do they get sponsorships if they don't care about the money? Stop, bro.
Yeah, man. So
Levi Apparel says Anton Tim is talking. I'm asleep. All he has is nonsense. Why is he running? Trump for the win. Come on, I was pulling bags of money. It was so much. Fade TV says Candace Owens' husband, George Farmer, is worth 240 M's, of which 70 M's was inherited. She don't need the money, haha. She just loves attacking elites. Listen, okay, whatever, y'all. Jay Ben says once you get up, how do y'all know how much he worth? Y'all Googled it. Jay Ben says once you get a plaque, you got to learn how to act. That's a fact. Terrence Tate says Quentin and Trigger will make a good couple.
I hate that word.
He says, why is the black version of Dumb and Dumber talking about football right now?
fuck you.
Christopher Mayberry says, sports with Slimmy and Q Diddy. No, we need a better name than that. Pete Funkerson says, this is in sources say that Myles Garrett is requesting a trade to the Buffalo Bills. Cap exec says, that back and forth was epic. Q and Slimmy brain sports. Yashua says, to be fair, Q being emotional, Slimmy actually is right.
No, he's not. I had stats.
Philly DJ Hook says, white T equal the male version of Trigger, mute him. Coach Ice says, Deacon Q Diddy, do you stream PC or console?
Console.
What? I'll get y'all channels in a minute. I Dizzy O says, JD hit him whenever I grew up with a middle class kid. Yeah, they did. Antonio Watkins says, Quentin's so wrong. Numbers do lie if you understand the context of matchups and injury lists, etc. Chris Mayberry says, 80, I gotta admit, I'd become a step baby daddy for Carrie. I'm gonna let that simmer. Dennis says, how is the Browns coach sorry when he won Coach of the Year twice in the last 4 years and they went to the playoffs with old ass Joe Flacco? Watson is washed like a laundry full of draws.
Yeah, okay. So I ain't about to deep dive into that, man. Like,
don't deep
I
dive.
don't care about Coach of the Year. Coach of the Year doesn't matter, man, when you can actually watch the play. Man, this motherfucker keeps trying to do these fakes on fourth down like he's gonna actually go for it, and he doesn't. And it doesn't work. He doesn't get anybody to jump off sides. And he doesn't, and he wastes time, man. It's like, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't care about Coach of the Year. Sometimes they give that award away with no significance, and it doesn't matter. It's a popularity thing, man. It's just like MVP in basketball. Most of the time, it's popularity that wins you some of these awards. And it's not what you're actually doing.
Hold on.
You
He
might as
said,
well.
fuck your coach of the year and fuck your stats.
Fuck with no coach of the year for no Stefanski. He's not the coach of the year.
Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Listen. We gonna get there. We gonna get there.
Yeah.
You might as well
That's I
create
gotta
your
get some rest.
thumbnails,
I
create
love
your
y'all.
channel.
I appreciate y'all. We back for the Millionaire Morning Show in the morning. Carrie, they love you. Carrie be acting like her DMs is dry though, but we gonna get there. Before we sign off, one thing that my people fail to do is promote themselves. Y'all, if y'all got a channel, can y'all please let the people know where to find y'all?
I'm still working on mine.
Yeah,
Carrie is
it's
still
still in
working on hers.
Somebody from over here found me on the college stuff, and they was talking reckless, and I was like, "That's why I don't tell y'all niggas where I be at."
Slimmy, you not promoting yours either? You don't got nothing you want to
not
promote?
not yet. Maybe
Quentin, do you have anything that you would like to promote?
Nope, I don't do shit. Nope.
Oh shit.
No, these
Okay, well,
niggas is
so much for
reckless.
the whole idea of promoting channels.
Not
Like
yet, not
if
yet.
it
Ask
was in
us
this
again.
space, yes, but I'd be like, man, you be over on Anton show, and they start talking. Now I'm like, nah, nigga, not over her.
So effectively, I was prepared to promote my people. They are not prepared to be, they not prepared to be promoted. They still working on it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't sleep, but they be playing games, changing diapers, and playing video games. So when they get their stuff together,
All my
y'all will
kids
be
are
the
potty.
first to find out. All right. Y'all got any final thoughts before we get up out of here?
Trump 2024.
yeah. Let them politicians stay in politics, man. Don't argue with your people over that shit, man. Don't fall out with your people over that shit. JD Vance was actually talking about that. Stop falling out with your people over these politicians that don't give a fuck and they shake hands with each other at the end of the day and go smoke cigars, sit in the cigar lounge, eat dinner together. They all kick it together. They're all fucking friends. Do not argue over politicians and politics with each other. And don't fuck around and lose friendships and family because of that shit. Because that shit don't matter in the long run, in the scheme of things. At the end of the day, they gonna do what the fuck they want to do and what they told to do. Live your life for yourself. Be the best version of you. That's what's gonna win.
Philly DJ Hook says Slimmy and Trigger Show, call it Bring the Noise. And Kiwi B says promote Kiwi B. Shout out to Kiwi B. I love you, Kiwi B. Thank you for holding me down.
Kiwi, what's your Instagram? I'm over
Ah,
there.
hell no.
I'm over there.
Kiwi B. Put your Instagram inside of the chat so Slimmy can get your IG. All right, Kiwi
I'm
B.
over there. I'm gonna promote your IG too.
Say
I'm gonna
Kiwi.B.
promote.
Kiwi.B.
Oh, that's what it is? Oh,
Maybe, I'm
okay.
thinking so. So shout out to Kiwi.B. All right, y'all. We love you. We appreciate y'all. I'm going to see y'all on the Millionaire Morning Show for the recap. I'm going to holler at y'all later. Peace.
Peace.